Welcome back, legends. This is HP Fiction. Here we explore powerful Harry Potter what-if stories. What if 9-year-old Harry entered Gringotts and discovered he was the legal owner of the Ministry of Magic? If you enjoy epic magical videos, subscribe to HP Fiction. Now, let the story begin. Chapter 1, The Forgotten Deed. The cupboard under the stairs had always smelled of dust and old shoes. Harry pressed his small palm against the wooden door, feeling the familiar grain beneath his fingers. The darkness inside was absolute, broken only by the thin strip of light that bled through the crack at the bottom. He'd learned to map this space with his hands, the rough texture of the wall where the paint had peeled, the sharp edge of the broken vacuum cleaner, the soft give of the mattress that smelled of mothballs and forgotten things. He was 9 years old, and he had never been outside number 4, Privet Drive without supervision. The Dursleys had made that abundantly clear. Dudley's old clothes hung loose on his thin frame, the sleeves rolled 3 times at the wrists. His glasses were held together with tape on the right temple, a testament to the football that had accidentally, always accidentally, found its way to his face last summer. But today was different. Today, the post had come, and with it, a letter that had changed everything. Harry remembered the moment with perfect clarity. The rattling of the letterbox at 7:42 in the morning. Aunt Petunia's sharp intake of breath. Uncle Vernon's face cycling through 4 distinct shades of purple before settling on something approaching thunderous. It wasn't the usual bills or catalogs. This envelope was heavy, made of parchment that seemed to glow faintly in the grey morning light. And it had been addressed, in emerald ink, to Mr. H. Potter, the cupboard under the stairs, 4, Privet Drive, Little Whinging, Surrey. The Dursleys had burned it. Harry had watched from the hallway as Uncle Vernon threw it into the fireplace, the parchment curling and blackening until it was nothing but ash. But not before Harry had seen the words on the back, Gringotts Wizarding Bank, important notice regarding inheritance and property. He'd heard the word inheritance before, in the whispered conversations that stopped whenever he entered a room. He'd heard freak and abnormal and ungrateful. But never inheritance. And so, at the age of 9, with nothing but the clothes on his back and a burning curiosity that had been kindled in the ashes of that letter, Harry Potter decided to run away. Not forever. Just long enough to find this Gringotts. Just long enough to understand what they wanted to tell him. The journey had taken 3 days. 3 days of stealing apples from market stalls and sleeping in bus shelters. 3 days of following the vague directions he'd wheedled from a man in a pub who had laughed at the address and called him a muggle-born who wouldn't know Diagon Alley if it bit him on the arse. But the man had drawn a map, of sorts, and Harry had held on to it like a lifeline. Now, as he stood on Charing Cross Road and stared at the grimy facade of the Leaky Cauldron, he felt something he hadn't felt in all his 9 years, the first stirring of belonging. The pub was unremarkable from the outside, sandwiched between a bookshop and a record store, its windows so smudged with grime that it was impossible to see inside. But Harry had learned to look past the surface of things. He'd learned to see the cracks in the world where magic bled through. He pushed open the heavy oak door and stepped inside. The interior was nothing like he'd expected. Warmth washed over him, thick with the smell of roasting meat and wood smoke. Lanterns hung from low beams, casting dancing shadows across worn wooden tables. A fire crackled in a massive hearth, and around it, people sat drinking from pewter tankards and speaking in low, urgent voices. They were all wearing robes. Harry tugged self-consciously at the too large t-shirt that had once belonged to Dudley, suddenly aware of how out of place he must look. But no one stared. No one pointed. In fact, the few patrons who glanced his way offered brief, almost bored nods before returning to their conversations. He made his way to the bar, where a stooped, balding man was polishing a glass with a cloth that seemed to be moving on its own. "You must be Harry," the man said without looking up. "Griphook's expecting you." Harry blinked. "How did you?" "Got a letter from the bank this morning." The man set down the glass and finally met Harry's eyes. His gaze was kind, his face creased with age and something that might have been pity. "I'm Tom, the landlord. Most people come through the fireplace, but I suppose you're not most people." I don't know how to use a fireplace, Harry admitted, feeling heat creep up his neck. Tom chuckled, a sound like gravel rolling downhill. Don't worry, lad. We'll sort you out. Through the back, mind the brick wall on the left. Harry nodded, his heart hammering in his chest as he made his way through the crowded pub toward a small, walled courtyard at the back. The moment he stepped outside, the noise of the pub faded, replaced by the distant rumble of London traffic. He stood in front of a blank brick wall, feeling foolish. There was a box of matches on a dustbin to his left. Harry picked them up, remembering something the man in the pub had said about the entrance to Diagon Alley. He tapped the bricks in a specific pattern, counting under his breath. 3 up. 2 across. The bricks began to shift and slide, folding inward like a flower opening its petals. Harry stepped back, his breath catching in his throat. Diagon Alley unfolded before him like a living painting. The street was narrow and winding, cobbled and ancient. Shop windows overflowed with impossible things, cauldrons that bubbled with rainbow-colored liquids, quills that wrote on their own. Books that flapped their covers like birds trying to take flight. The air was thick with magic, a tangible energy that seemed to hum against Harry's skin. He stood frozen at the entrance, drinking it all in. A woman in emerald robes swept past him, her parrot on her shoulder squawking something about dragon liver futures. A pack of children ran by, their laughter echoing off the weathered stone walls as they chased a ball that seemed to change direction of its own accord. And there, at the end of the street, rising white and gleaming against the grey sky, was Gringotts. Harry had never seen anything like it. The bank was a fortress, its marble columns soaring toward the heavens, its bronze doors polished to a mirror shine. On either side of the entrance, 2 creatures stood guard, short, gnarled beings with long fingers and sharp teeth, their eyes glinting with an intelligence that made Harry's skin crawl. Goblins. He'd read about them in the books he'd stolen from the library, in the forbidden section that he'd managed to access with his library card and a well-timed distraction. The goblins of Gringotts guarded the wizarding world's wealth, and they did not suffer fools. Harry swallowed hard and walked forward. The goblins at the door didn't speak, but their eyes tracked him as he passed. The bronze doors swung open on their own, revealing an enormous hall of white marble, stretching away into shadowy distance. Long counters lined the walls, manned by goblins in black uniforms, their hands moving with impossible speed as they counted piles of gold and silver. The air here was cold and sharp, smelling of parchment and old metal. Harry approached the nearest counter, trying to summon all the courage he'd never known he possessed. "I'm Harry Potter," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I received a letter." The goblin behind the counter looked up from his ledgers, his eyes narrowing. He was older than the guards outside, his face a mass of wrinkles around a long, hooked nose. "Potter," he repeated, the word dripping with something that might have been respect or might have been contempt. "We've been expecting you." The goblin, his nameplate red griphook, set down his quill and studied Harry with unsettling intensity. "You're younger than I expected," he said finally. "But the magic doesn't lie. Follow me." Harry followed, his sneakers squeaking on the polished marble floor. They passed through a door behind the counter, down a long corridor lit by torches that burned with green flame, and into an office that was smaller than Harry's cupboard. It was crammed with papers, stacked in precarious towers on every surface. The walls were covered in maps, their lines shifting and flowing as Harry watched. In the center of the room was a desk, and behind it sat another goblin, this one ancient beyond measure, his skin like cracked parchment stretched over bones. "Ragnarok," Griphook said, bowing slightly. "The boy is here." Ragnarok's eyes, the same shade of gold as the coins in the vaults, fixed on Harry. "So you are," he said. His voice was dry and crackling, like autumn leaves. "The last Potter. The first to answer the summons in 40 years. Harry felt his stomach knot. "I didn't know about any summons. I only got the letter yesterday, and my uncle burned it before I could read." "Letters are irrelevant," Ragnarok interrupted, waving a gnarled hand. "It is the magic that matters. The ancient wards have sensed your presence, Harry Potter. They have been waiting for you." Harry didn't understand. None of this made sense. Waiting for me? Why? Ragnar exchanged a glance with Griphook, something unspoken passing between them. Finally, the ancient goblin leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. Tell me, boy. What do you know of your family's history? Harry shrugged, a gesture that was more defensive than casual. Not much. The Dursleys told me my parents died in a car crash. That they were drunks. That I was, he stopped, the familiar words catching in his throat. That I was a burden. For the first time, something like sympathy flickered across Ragnar's lined face. Lies, he said softly. All of it. Your parents were not drunks, and they did not die in any car crash. They were murdered, Harry. Murdered by the darkest wizard of our age. And you survived. Harry had heard the word murder before, in the whispered conversations he'd caught at the school gates, in the pitying looks the teachers gave him when they thought he wasn't looking. But hearing it spoken aloud, so plainly, made the world tilt. Who, he managed to say. Who killed them? Ragnar shook his head. That is not my story to tell. But I can tell you this, Harry Potter, your family is older than the Ministry itself. Older than the Wizengamot. Older than almost anything in magical Britain. Harry felt like he was standing at the edge of a precipice, looking down into an abyss. What does that mean? Ragnar rose from his chair, his movements slow and deliberate. He walked to a wall covered in maps, and with a wave of his hand, the maps folded away, revealing a massive safe embedded in the stone. The safe had no visible lock, but Ragnar pressed his palm against it, and with a grinding sound that echoed through the room, it swung open. Inside was a single scroll. It was ancient, the parchment yellowed and cracked with age. The ribbon that bound it was black velvet, tarnished with time. Ragnar lifted it out with the reverence of a man handling a holy relic, and placed it on the desk before Harry. Ancestral charters, Ragnar said. Your father deposited this with Gringotts before he died, with strict instructions that it was to be revealed to you upon your coming of age. But the ward sensed you earlier than expected. They brought you here, to us. And now I have the honor, the burden, of showing you what it contains. Harry reached for the scroll, his fingers trembling. He'd seen magical objects all day, the moving photographs, the self-stirring cauldrons, the quills that wrote on their own, but this felt different. This felt like history. He unrolled the parchment with shaking hands. The script was old, written in a language that Harry didn't recognize, but as he read, the words seemed to shimmer and shift, translating themselves into English in his mind. Be it known to all who witness this charter, that the Ministry of Magical Affairs, established in the year of our Lord 1692, shall exist as an extension of the authority of the ancient and noble House of Peveril, and through them, their descendants and heirs, to whom true sovereignty shall always belong. Harry read it twice. 3 times. The words didn't change. What is this? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. What does this mean? Ragnar's face was unreadable. It means, he said slowly, that the Ministry of Magic was not founded as a sovereign entity. It was founded as an instrument of rule. A tool. And that tool was given authority by the House of Peveril, a house that, through marriage and descent, became one with the House of Potter. Harry stared at the ancient goblin, the world slowly dissolving around him. So I own the ministry. Ragnar did not smile. It is more complicated than that. The ministry has been allowed to function independently for centuries, its foundations obscured by time and the convenience of those in power. But the charter is clear. The Peveril Covenant, as it is known, names the heirs of that house as the legal owners of the Ministry of Magic. Harry's mind raced, trying to process the implications. But I'm 9. I don't even know how to use magic properly. I can't. Your age does not diminish the validity of your claim, Ragnar cut in. The magic of the covenant is bound to blood and lineage, not to years. You are the last surviving heir of the Peveril line. Therefore, you are the rightful owner of the Ministry of Magic. The words hung in the air like a spell. Harry Potter, 9 years old, owner of the Ministry of Magic. It was impossible. It was madness. And yet, as he looked at the ancient scroll, at the shifting letters that seemed to glow with their own inner light, he knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his bones, that it was true. "Why didn't my parents tell me?" he asked, his voice cracking. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" Ragnar's expression softened, just slightly. "Your parents, I believe, wanted to protect you. The knowledge of this charter would have made you a target. Even now, there are those who would stop at nothing to ensure that this secret never reaches the wider world." Harry felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold air of the office. "Who?" "Those who have profited from the ministry's independence," Ragnar said carefully. "The minister himself. The Wiesengemot. The noble houses. They have built their power on the foundations of a lie. And lies, when threatened, breed violence." Harry had experienced violence. He knew the sting of Uncle Vernon's hand, the sharp bite of Aunt Petunia's frying pan, the casual cruelty of Dudley's fists. But this was different. This was a violence that could reach across the magical world and crush him without warning. He looked down at the scroll again, at the ancient words that had changed everything. "What do I do?" he asked. "What happens now?" Ragnar was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy. "There are procedures. The claim must be tested, verified by magical tribunal. The ministry must be presented with the evidence and given time to respond. This will not be a battle won overnight, Harry Potter. It will be a war." Harry nodded slowly, trying to absorb the weight of it all. "But I'm just a kid. I don't know how to fight a war." "You are more than a child," Ragnar said. "You are an heir. And the magic of the covenant will protect you, but only if you choose to accept it. The path before you is not an easy one. It is a path of sacrifice and hardship. But if you have the courage to walk it, you will change the magical world forever." Harry looked at the ancient goblin, and for the first time in his life, he felt something other than fear. He felt purpose. "I'll do it," he said. "I'll claim the ministry. I'll make my parents proud." Ragnar nodded slowly, a glint of respect flickering in his golden eyes. "Then we have much to discuss, Harry Potter. Much to discuss indeed." The ancient goblin rose from behind his desk, his movements stiff but purposeful. He summoned Griphook with a gesture, and the younger goblin entered the office, his face a mask of professional neutrality. "Prepare the vaults," Ragnar commanded. "The heir has need of his inheritance. And send word to the tribunal. We have a claim to register." Griphook's eyes widened, a flicker of genuine surprise breaking through his composure. "The tribunal? But the boy is an heir," Ragnar cut in. "The last of the Peveril line. The charter recognizes no age, no experience, no training. Only blood. And his blood is true." Griphook bowed, but Harry caught the glance he shot him, a look of pity mixed with something like awe. It was the same look the patrons of the Leaky Cauldron had given him, the same look the man in the pub had worn when Harry asked for directions to Diagon Alley. It was the look of someone who knew something terrible was coming. "I'll need to know everything," Harry said, his voice stronger than he felt. "Everything about the ministry. About the tribunal. About the people who will try to stop me." Ragnar's face split into something that might have been a smile, had it been on any other face. "Good," he said. "You learn quickly. That will serve you well." The goblin reached into a drawer and pulled out a thick leather tome, its pages crackling with age. "This is the history of the ministry as it should be written. Take it with you. Read it. Understand it. And when you are ready, we will begin." Harry took the tome, his arms straining under its weight. It was warm to the touch, humming with ancient magic. "There is one more thing," Ragnar said, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. "The magic of the covenant is powerful, but it is not infallible. There are those who will try to kill you, Harry Potter. They will not fight fair. They will use every dark art at their disposal to stop you from claiming what is yours." Harry nodded, his jaw set. "I understand. Do you?" Ragnar's eyes bore into him. Do you truly understand what it means to walk this path? The ministry has stood for 3 centuries, its secrets buried deep. The people in power will not simply step aside because a child waves a parchment at them. They will fight. They will lie. They will kill. And you will be alone. The words hit Harry like a physical blow. He felt the weight of them, the crushing reality of what he was about to attempt. But beneath the fear, beneath the uncertainty, there was something else. A flicker of defiance. A spark of the same courage that had made his parents stand against the darkest wizard of their age. Then I'll find allies, he said. I'll find people who believe in the truth. I'll build a new ministry from the ashes of the old. Ragnar studied him for a long moment, and then slowly, almost imperceptibly, nodded. Perhaps you are ready after all, he said softly. Perhaps the Covenant chose wisely. The streets of Diagon Alley were even more crowded as Harry stepped out of Gringotts, the leather tome clutched to his chest. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows across the cobblestones. The shops were closing their doors, their magical wares retreating into the darkness. Harry had no idea where he was going to sleep. He'd used the last of his stolen change to buy a pasty from a cart on the corner, and now he sat on a low wall near the entrance to Nocturne Alley, chewing slowly and watching the magical world go by. He was an heir. He was the owner of the ministry. He was the last of a line stretching back centuries. And he was 9 years old, alone, and utterly terrified. The tears came before he could stop them, hot, angry tears that he wiped away with his sleeve. He thought of the Dursleys, who had never wanted him. He thought of the cupboard under the stairs, dark and cramped and smelling of old shoes. He thought of his parents, whom he'd never known, who had died to protect him. I'll make you proud, he whispered to the empty air. I promise. I'll make you proud. He was still sitting there when a shadow fell over him. Harry looked up, his heart lurching in his chest. A tall figure in dark robes was standing over him, his face hidden in the shadows of his hood. Harry scrambled to his feet, the tome clutched protectively against his chest. Who are you? He demanded, trying to keep his voice steady. The figure reached up and pushed back the hood, revealing a face that was surprisingly kind, lined with age, with sharp grey eyes that seemed to see straight through him. Albus Dumbledore, the man said, his voice warm and slightly musical. You must be Harry Potter. I've been looking for you. Harry didn't relax. How do you know my name? The old man, Dumbledore, smiled, his eyes twinkling in the fading light. I know many things, Harry. And I've been expecting you for quite some time. You see, I was a friend of your parents. And I have been keeping watch over you, though perhaps not as closely as I should have. Harry felt a surge of anger. Then why didn't you come sooner? Why didn't you stop the Dursleys? Why did you let them? He broke off, unable to finish the sentence. Dumbledore's face grew solemn. I made mistakes, Harry. Many mistakes. I left you with your aunt and uncle because I believed it was the safest place for you. The protections your mother died to give you were strongest at her sister's home. But I should have checked on you more often. I should have ensured you were treated with kindness. For that, I am truly sorry. Harry didn't know what to say. He'd been angry for so long, angry at the world and everyone in it. But this old man's apology was so sincere, so unexpected, that the anger seemed to drain out of him. Why are you here now? He asked. What do you want? Dumbledore studied him for a moment, his grey eyes unreadable. I know what you discovered at Gringotts today, he said. The goblins sent word to the Order of the Phoenix. There are those of us who have been waiting for this day for a very long time. The Order of the Phoenix? Harry repeated. What's that? It is a group of witches and wizards who fought against the Dark Lord, Dumbledore said. Your parents were among its most prominent members. And now, with your claim to the ministry, we may have a chance to finish what they started. Harry shook his head. I don't understand. What does my claim have to do with the Dark Lord? Ragnar said he was dead. He killed my parents, and then something happened, and he died. He is not dead, Dumbledore said softly. He is weakened, yes, but not dead. And he has followers, Harry. Followers who would do anything to see him rise again. They have infiltrated the ministry. They have corrupted the Wisengamot. They have twisted the laws of our world to serve their own ends. The pieces began to fall into place. The ministry, Harry breathed. The people who would try to stop me. They're his followers. Dumbledore nodded slowly. Some of them are. Others are simply cowards, desperate to protect their own power. But all of them share one thing in common: they will do whatever it takes to stop you from claiming what is yours. Harry thought of the ancient scroll, of the words that had burned themselves into his memory. He thought of his parents, murdered for standing against darkness. He thought of the Dursleys, who had tried to stamp out every shred of magic in him. Then I need allies, he said, his voice firm. People who will stand with me. People who believe in the truth. Dumbledore's smile returned, faintly. That is why I'm here. I cannot promise you an easy path, Harry. But I can promise you this: you are not alone. There are more people in the magical world who believe in justice than you might think. And they will rally to your cause. He held out his hand. Will you come with me? I can offer you a place to stay, a safe place where you can learn and grow. It will not be a normal childhood. I think that ship has sailed, but it will give you the tools you need to fight. Harry looked at the old man's hand, and he thought of all the times in his life when no one had offered him anything. All the times he'd been alone, unwanted, unloved. He took it. Yes, he said. I'll come with you. Dumbledore's hand was warm and strong, and as Harry gripped it, he felt something shift inside him. A thread of magic, thin but unbreakable, connecting him to something vast and ancient. The Covenant. It recognized Dumbledore. It trusted him. And maybe, Harry thought, that was enough. The place Dumbledore took him was a castle. Harry had never seen anything like it. It rose out of the Scottish mountains, all soaring towers and ancient stone, its windows glowing with warm light against the darkening sky. As they approached, Harry saw figures moving in the windows, saw the flicker of torches along the battlements. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Dumbledore said, a note of pride in his voice. The finest school of magic in the world. I am the headmaster here. And I think you'll find it's a much better home than Privet Drive. Harry couldn't speak. He'd imagined a safe place, but he'd never imagined anything like this. They passed through the gates, and Harry felt the wards wash over him like a warm wave. The magic here was ancient and strong, humming in his veins like a second heartbeat. Inside the castle, the halls were lined with portraits that waved and smiled at him as he passed. The suits of armor bowed. The ghosts drifted through walls and floors like wisps of smoke. Harry felt like he was walking through a dream. Dumbledore led him to a small tower room, its walls lined with books and its windows looking out over the misty mountains. A fire crackled in the hearth, and a soft four-poster bed stood in the corner. This will be your room while you stay here, Dumbledore said. If there's anything you need, simply ask the portraits. They're quite chatty, but they mean well. Harry walked to the window and looked out at the view. The mountains stretched away into the darkness, purple and black against the starry sky. Somewhere out there, he knew, the ministry was sitting in its golden tower, confident in its lies. But those lies were about to be exposed. You'll be safe here, Dumbledore said. The wards of Hogwarts are the strongest in Britain. No one can harm you while you're within these walls. Harry turned to face him. But I can't stay here forever. I have to go back. I have to claim the ministry. Dumbledore nodded slowly. You will. But first, you must prepare. The tribunal will not be easy. They will test you in ways you cannot imagine. But you have time to learn, time to grow, time to become the person your parents always knew you could be. Harry felt the weight of the ancient tome in his arms. Where should I start? Dumbledore smiled, and for the first time, Harry saw a flicker of something like hope in the old man's eyes. Start at the beginning, he said. Read the charter. Understand the history. And when you're ready, we will begin your training. He paused at the door, turning back. And Harry? Whatever happens, remember that you are not alone. Your parents' legacy lives on in you. And that legacy is stronger than any darkness. He left, and Harry was alone in the tower room, the fire crackling softly and the book heavy in his arms. He opened the ancient tome, its pages crackling with age, and began to read. The hours passed, marked only by the dying of the fire and the rising of the moon. Harry read until his eyes burned and his head throbbed, the words of the charter burning themselves into his brain. It was more than just a legal document. It was a history. A history of magic, of bloodlines, of wars fought and won. The Peveril family had been the first to unite the magical world, binding the disparate communities together under a single banner. They had founded the ministry as a tool of governance, a way to bring order to chaos. But over the centuries, that tool had been corrupted. Ministers had twisted the laws to their own ends. The Wisingamot had become a nest of vipers, more concerned with maintaining power than with serving the people. The goblins had been pushed to the margins, their contributions to the magical world forgotten and unacknowledged. And at the heart of it all was a single thread, the Peveril Covenant. The promise that the true owner of the ministry would one day return to claim what was theirs. Harry looked up from the book, his mind racing. The covenant was so old, so forgotten, that most people had no idea it even existed. But it had been kept alive in the vaults of Gringotts, preserved by the goblins who remembered the old ways. They trusted me, he whispered to the empty room. They kept the secret for centuries, and they trusted me. The weight of that trust was immense. It settled over him like a mantle, heavy and warm. He closed the book and walked to the window. The moon hung low over the mountains, silver and cold. Below him, the grounds of Hogwarts stretched away into the darkness, dotted with the flickering lights of other towers. Somewhere out there, the Minister of Magic was sleeping in his bed, unaware that his entire world was about to change. The Wisingamot was sitting in its chambers, debating laws that had no meaning. The noble houses were plotting their schemes, chasing their ambitions. And Harry Potter, 9 years old, was about to tear it all down. He felt no anger. No hatred. Only a cold, burning certainty that had crystallized in the hours he'd spent reading. The ministry was broken, and he was going to fix it. Not for revenge. Not for power. But because it was the right thing to do. Because his parents had died for a better world, and he would finish what they started. The fire crackled softly behind him, and Harry felt a strange sense of peace. For the first time in his life, he knew exactly what he was meant to do. He was the heir of Peveril. The owner of the ministry. And tomorrow, he would begin the fight to claim what was his. The next morning dawned grey and misty, the mountains shrouded in clouds that clung to the castle like a cloak. Harry woke early, his body aching from the long night of reading, but his mind sharp and focused. Dumbledore was waiting for him in the great hall, a table spread with breakfast laid out before them. The other tables were empty, the students gone for the summer, but the portraits on the walls watched him with undisguised curiosity. "You look well rested," Dumbledore said, a hint of amusement in his voice. "I trust you found the book illuminating." "It changed everything," Harry said, sliding into a seat. "I had no idea, the covenant, the history, the corruption." "Knowledge is power," Dumbledore said. "But it is also a burden. Are you ready to bear that burden, Harry?" Harry looked at the old man, at the twinkling eyes that seemed to see straight through him. "I don't know if I'm ready. But I know I have to try." Dumbledore nodded, a flicker of approval crossing his face. "That is all I can ask. Now, eat. We have much to discuss, and the goblins will be expecting us at Gringotts by midday." Harry ate mechanically, his mind racing with possibilities. The tribunal. The ministry. The corruption. All of it was swirling in his head, a storm of thoughts and plans and fears. "I've been thinking," he said, breaking the silence. "About the ministry. About how to claim it. If the covenant is so old, why hasn't anyone tried to challenge it before?" Dumbledore set down his fork, his expression growing serious. "The covenant is protected by ancient magic," he said. Only a direct heir of the Peveril line can activate it. There have been other heirs over the centuries, but none of them chose to pursue the claim. Some were content with their lives. Others were, discouraged by the forces that sought to maintain the status quo. Harry's fists clenched. The Ministry killed them. Didn't they? Dumbledore's silence was answer enough. Then I'll be different, Harry said, his voice fierce. I won't let them stop me. I'll claim what's mine, and I'll tear down every corrupt institution they've built. Dumbledore smiled, a hint of sadness in his eyes. That is the spirit of your parents, Harry. And I am proud to see it in you. They finished breakfast in silence, and then Dumbledore led Harry through the castle to a large fireplace in the entrance hall. Flow powder, he said, handing Harry a pinch of green powder. Toss it into the flames and call out, Diagon Alley, clearly. You'll arrive in the Leaky Cauldron's fireplace. Harry had never used flow powder before, but he'd read about it in the book. He tossed the powder into the flames, which flared bright green, and stepped into the fire. Diagon Alley, he called. The world spun, a blur of fireplaces and colors, and then he was stumbling out into the familiar warmth of the Leaky Cauldron. Dumbledore emerged behind him, brushing soot from his robes. Well done. Now, let's not keep the goblins waiting. The streets of Diagon Alley were bustling with morning activity. Harry walked with Dumbledore through the crowd, feeling the eyes of the witches and wizards on him. Word had spread, he realized. They knew who he was. They knew what he was planning. Some looked at him with pity. Others with fear. A few, a very few, looked at him with something like hope. When they reached Gringotts, Griphook was waiting at the entrance. He bowed deeply, his eyes flickering to Dumbledore and then back to Harry. The tribunal has been summoned, he said. They are waiting in the Grand Vault. But before you meet them, there is something you must see. Harry exchanged a glance with Dumbledore, then nodded. Lead the way. They descended into the depths of Gringotts, past vault after vault, the temperature dropping as they went deeper. The torches on the walls burned with a cold blue flame, casting eerie shadows across the stone. Finally, they came to a door made of solid silver. It was etched with the same ancient script that Harry had seen on the Covenant, the words shifting and moving as he watched. Griphook placed his palm against the door, and with a groan of ancient magic, it swung open. Beyond it was a vault unlike any Harry had seen. Gold coins piled to the ceiling. Jeweled goblets and ancient artifacts. Suits of armor that moved on their own, guarding the treasure. And in the center of it all, on a pedestal of obsidian, sat a crown. This is the vault of the Peveril family, Griphook said. The wealth of your ancestors. But more importantly, it contains the crown of the Peveril sovereign. The symbol of your right to rule. Harry walked toward the pedestal, his steps echoing in the vast space. The crown was beautiful, made of silver and set with emeralds that seemed to glow with their own inner light. As he drew closer, he felt the magic radiating from it, ancient and powerful. Touch it, Griphook said. If you are truly the heir, the crown will accept you. Harry's hand trembled as he reached out. His fingers brushed against the cool metal, and a wave of power surged through him, raw and overwhelming. Images flooded his mind, battles fought, laws made, kingdoms built and destroyed. The history of his family, stretching back to the dawn of magic itself. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. He looked down at his hand. The crown was gone. In its place, a silver ring adorned his finger, set with a single emerald that pulsed with a faint, steady light. The crown has accepted you, Griphook said, a rare note of wonder in his voice. You are truly the heir of Peveril. Harry looked at the ring, at the symbol of everything he was about to become. The weight of it settled over him, not as a burden, but as a promise. The tribunal, he said, his voice steady. Take me to them. The Grand Vault was enormous, a cavernous space filled with the echoes of ancient magic. At its center stood a stone circle, and within that circle, a table carved from black obsidian. 3 figures sat at the table, their faces unreadable. The first was a woman with silver hair and eyes like shards of ice. She wore robes of deep blue, embroidered with stars that shifted and moved. Arcturus Black, she introduced herself. Head of the ancient and noble house of Black, speaking for the Waisengamot. The second was a man with a weathered face and hands that bore the calluses of hard work. He wore simple brown robes, and his eyes were kind but sharp. Gideon Pruitt, he said. Representing the Ministry of Magic. The third was a goblin, ancient beyond measure, his face so lined with wrinkles that his eyes were barely visible. Vol, he said, his voice a dry rasp. Speaking for Gringotts and the Goblin Nation. Harry stood at the edge of the stone circle, Dumbledore a silent presence at his back. The three tribunal members looked at him, their gazes weighing him, judging him. State your claim, Arcturus Black said. Her voice was cold, but there was a flicker of something else in her eyes. Interest. Curiosity. Fear. Harry met her gaze. I am Harry James Potter, son of James and Lily Potter, and I am the last surviving heir of the ancient and noble house of Peveril. I claim the Ministry of Magic in accordance with the Covenant of 1692, which established the Ministry as an instrument of my ancestors' authority. Vol nodded slowly. The Covenant is recognized by Gringotts. I have verified the charter. It is authentic. Gideon Pruitt leaned forward, his face creased with concern. But the claim itself, it is unprecedented. The Ministry has stood for 300 years without challenge. There are legal precedents, established laws. The Covenant predates all of them, Arcturus Black cut in. It is the foundational document upon which the Ministry was built. The boy's claim is valid, whether we like it or not. Harry felt a surge of gratitude toward the woman. She was cold, yes, but she was also fair. She was giving him a chance. But the tribunal has its own procedures, Vol said. The claim cannot be accepted until it is tested. The boy must prove himself worthy of the authority he seeks. What kind of test? Harry asked. Vol's ancient eyes fixed on him. The trial of ownership, he said. A magical tribunal that will assess your worthiness to inherit the ministry. It is not a test of magic alone. It is a test of character. Of courage. Of wisdom. Harry felt his heart race, but he didn't back down. When do I begin? Arcturus Black smiled, a thin, sharp expression. You have already begun, she said. The trial has many stages. You will be tested in ways you cannot imagine. Some you will pass. Some you may fail. But by the end, we will know whether you have what it takes to rule. Harry looked down at the ring on his finger, the emerald pulsing with a steady, reassuring light. He thought of his parents, who had given their lives for a better world. He thought of the Dursleys, who had tried to break him. He thought of all the people in the magical world who were counting on him, even if they didn't know it yet. Then I'll take the trial, he said. I'll prove myself. Whatever it takes. Gideon Pruitt rose from his seat, a small, warm smile on his weathered face. Then we will reconvene in 1 month's time, he said. Use that month to prepare. The trial will not be gentle. The tribunal rose as one, their presence dissolving into the shadows of the vault. Harry stood alone in the center of the stone circle, the weight of everything pressing down on him. But the ring on his finger pulsed with steady light, and Harry knew, with a certainty that went deeper than words, that he could do this. He was Harry Potter. He was the heir of Peveril. And he was going to change the world. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 2, The Ministry's Hidden Secret. The month that followed was the strangest of Harry's life. He woke each morning in the tower room at Hogwarts, the Scottish mist clinging to the windows like a second skin, and he spent his days immersed in a world he'd never known existed. Dumbledore had arranged for tutors, witches and wizards who came and went through the Floo network, their robes swirling with the colors of ancient houses and forgotten orders. They taught him history. They taught him law. They taught him the arcane language of the Covenant and the intricate web of bloodlines that connected the noble houses of Britain. But most of all, they taught him about the ministry itself. It was a revelation. Harry had assumed, in his innocence, that the ministry was what it claimed to be, a governing body dedicated to the welfare of magical Britain. A neutral arbiter of justice. A force for order in a chaotic world. He had never been so wrong. The ministry was never meant to be independent, Professor Binns said, his ghostly form drifting through the walls of the study where Harry sat. The covenant is clear. The Peveril family established the ministry as an administrative arm of their rule. A tool to be used in service of the people. Harry looked at the ancient ghost, his quill frozen over the parchment where he'd been taking notes. Then how did it become what it is today? How did the ministry forget its own purpose? Binns's spectral face was unreadable. Power corrupts, he said simply. And the ministry has accumulated an enormous amount of power over 3 centuries. The ministers who followed the founding generation began to see themselves as sovereigns in their own right. They rewrote the laws. They obscured the charter. They created a mythology of independence that served their interests. Who rewrote the laws? Harry asked, his voice sharp. Who started the cover-up? Binns drifted closer, his translucent form casting no shadow. It was a gradual process. A slow erosion of truth over generations. But the most significant changes came during the tenure of Minister Ferris Spavin in the late 18th century. He was the one who commissioned the Revised Charter, a document that declared the ministry a self-governing entity. He also ordered the destruction of all copies of the original covenant he could find. The original covenant, Harry repeated. The one in Gringotts. The only one, Binns confirmed. Spavin's agents searched every vault, every archive, every private library. They believed they had succeeded in erasing the covenant from existence. But the Peveril family had prepared for such a betrayal. They entrusted a copy to the goblins, sealed with blood magic that could only be opened by a true heir. Harry set down his quill, his mind racing. So the ministry doesn't know the covenant exists. They think they've destroyed it. Binns nodded slowly. The current minister, Cornelius Fudge, is unaware of the covenant's survival. He believes himself to be the legitimate head of an independent government. The revelation of your claim will be destabilizing. The word hung in the air like a curse. Destabilizing, Harry repeated. You mean they'll try to kill me? I mean they will do whatever it takes to maintain their power, Binns corrected. Whether that involves assassination, legal manipulation, or public discrediting, that remains to be seen. Harry looked down at the ring on his finger, the emerald pulsing with its quiet, steady light. It had become a comfort to him over the past weeks, a reminder of who he was and what he was fighting for. Then I need to know everything, he said. Every law they've twisted. Every precedent they've set. Every dark corner they think they've hidden. Binns's spectral lips curved into something that might have been approval. That, he said, is precisely the right attitude. The weeks passed in a blur of study and preparation. Harry learned about the Wisengamot, the ancient council that served as the magical world's highest court and legislature. He learned about the noble houses, their interlocking alliances and ancient feuds. He learned about the Department of Mysteries, the shadowy arm of the ministry that dealt in secrets too dangerous for public consumption. And every night, when the tower room fell silent and the fire had burned down to embers, Harry read the ancient tome that Griphook had given him. The history of the ministry as it should be written was more than a book. It was a confession, a testament to centuries of lies and the brave few who had tried to expose them. One passage in particular haunted him. The ministry of magic, in its current form, exists to serve itself. It is a machine designed to maintain the power of those who control it. The laws it passes are not for the benefit of the people, but for the enrichment of the few. The justice it dispenses is not justice at all, but a tool of oppression wielded by the powerful against the powerless. This is not what the founders intended. The ministry was meant to be a servant, not a master. It was meant to protect, not to oppress. And one day, when the true heir returns, the machine will be dismantled. The lies will be exposed. And the ministry will be restored to its original purpose. Harry read those words over and over until they were burned into his memory. He thought of the Dursleys, who had used their power over him to crush his spirit. He thought of The teachers at school who had looked the other way when Dudley and his gang tormented him. He thought of all the people who had held power over him and used it cruelly. The ministry was no different. It was just a bigger bully, with more power and more victims. "I'm going to stop them," he whispered to the empty room. "I'm going to take back what's mine and make things right." On the morning of his meeting with the tribunal, Harry woke before dawn. The fire had burned to ash, and the room was cold, but he barely noticed. His heart was pounding, his palms slick with sweat. He dressed carefully, in robes that Dumbledore had provided, simple black robes, unadorned, the kind worn by students and scholars. He wanted no one to mistake him for anything other than what he was, a 9-year-old boy with a claim to power he hadn't asked for. Dumbledore met him in the entrance hall. "Are you ready?" he asked, his eyes twinkling despite the early hour. Harry nodded, though his stomach was churning. "As ready as I'll ever be." They traveled by Floo Powder to Diagon Alley, emerging in the leaky cauldron's fireplace at the crack of dawn. The streets were empty, the shops shuttered, the cobblestones slick with dew. Gringotts loomed before them, white marble gleaming in the grey light. The goblin guards at the doors recognized Harry immediately, their eyes flicking to the ring on his finger before they stepped aside to let him pass. Inside, the bank was quiet. The counters were empty, the goblins having been given the day off. Griphook was waiting in the entrance hall, his face as unreadable as ever. "The tribunal is assembled in the Grand Vault," he said. "They are ready to begin." Harry followed him through the winding corridors, past the silver door and the ancient vaults. The air grew colder, the torchlight dimmer, until they reached the stone circle where the tribunal had first convened. The 3 members were waiting. Arcturus Black, cold and elegant in her star-spangled robes. Gideon Pruitt, his weathered face creased with concern. Vol, the ancient goblin, his eyes gleaming like chips of flint. Beside them stood 2 new figures. The first was a man Harry recognized from the newspapers that had been smuggled into the castle. Cornelius Fudge, the Minister of Magic, in a pinstriped suit that strained across his ample belly. His face was flushed, his eyes darting nervously around the vault. The second was a woman Harry didn't recognize. She was tall and severe, with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun and eyes that seemed to bore into his soul. She wore the robes of the Wizengamot, embroidered with the symbols of her office. "Harry Potter," Fudge said, his voice high and reedy. "I must say, this is all rather unexpected. Very unexpected indeed. I'm not sure what you think you're doing, but I assure you, there's been some terrible misunderstanding." Harry met his gaze. "There's no misunderstanding, Minister. I have the covenant. I have the ring. I'm the heir of Peveril, and I'm here to claim what's mine." Fudge's face went through several shades of purple, finally settling on something approaching panic. Now, let's not be hasty. The covenant you mention is a historical document, nothing more. It has no legal standing in the modern era. The ministry is a sovereign entity, established by the will of the people. The ministry was established by a covenant signed by the Peveril family, Harry cut in. The people had no say in it. You've been lying to them for centuries. The severe woman stepped forward, her eyes blazing. "How dare you speak to the minister that way? You're a child. A barely educated, magically incompetent child. You have no idea what you're talking about." "I know more than you think," Harry said, his voice steady. "I've studied the history. I've read the original documents. The ministry was founded as a tool of the Peveril family, and it belongs to their heirs. I'm the last of that line. I'm here to claim it." The woman laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the vault. "You can't claim something that doesn't exist. The ministry is a legal entity, established by law and precedent. Your little parchment is nothing but an antique, a relic from a bygone age. It has no power over us." "The covenant has power," Vol said, his voice cutting through the tension. "It is recognized by Gringotts. It is sealed with ancient blood magic that cannot be broken. The boy's claim is valid." Fudge's face had gone from purple to a sickly shade of green. "Now, see here, Vol, this is goblin overreach. You have no authority to meddle in human affairs. The covenant predates human authority, Vol said coldly. The goblins were the ones who witnessed it. The goblins were the ones who preserved it. And the goblins will enforce it, whether you like it or not. The severe woman stepped forward, her hand raised as if to strike Harry down. But before she could touch him, a shimmering barrier of silver light erupted around him, blocking her advance. Touch him, and you will answer to me, Dumbledore said, his voice soft but dangerous. The wards of Gringotts protect the heir of Peveril. And so do I. The woman recoiled, her face twisted with fury. You're protecting him. Dumbledore, you're out of your mind. This child will destroy everything we've built. Everything you've built is a lie, Harry said, his voice ringing through the vault. The ministry doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the people. And I'm going to give it back to them. Silence fell. The tribunal members exchanged glances, their faces unreadable. Fudge was trembling, his composure crumbling. The severe woman was staring at Harry with undisguised hatred. Finally, Arcturus Black spoke. The tribunal has made its decision. The boy's claim will be tested. We will begin the trial of ownership immediately. Fudge sputtered. But, you can't just. We can, Arcturus cut in. The charter of the tribunal gives us authority to adjudicate claims of this nature. The trial will proceed, regardless of the minister's objections. The severe woman turned to leave, but Arcturus stopped her. And Dolores? You are not dismissed. You will stay and witness the proceedings. The ministry's involvement is required. Dolores Umbridge, Harry realized. He'd read about her in the histories, a high-ranking official in the ministry, known for her ruthless pursuit of power. She was exactly the kind of person he would need to remove. I'm ready, Harry said. Let the trial begin. The trial of ownership, Harry soon discovered, was unlike anything he'd expected. It wasn't a courtroom, with judges and juries and legal arguments. It was a magical trial, one that tested not just his knowledge but his very essence. The stone circle in the grand vault transformed into an arena of ancient magic, its boundaries shimmering with power. The trial has 3 stages, Vol said, his voice echoing through the vault. The first is the trial of knowledge. You will be asked questions about the covenant, the ministry, and the history of your family. You will be expected to answer correctly, without hesitation. Harry nodded, his heart pounding. He'd studied hard, but he knew the questions would be difficult, designed to trip him up. Begin, Arcturus said. The first question came from Gideon Pruitt. What is the date of the founding covenant? September 12, 1692, Harry said without hesitation. It was signed in the presence of the Goblin King, the Peveril family, and representatives of the major magical communities of Britain. Gideon nodded, a flicker of approval in his eyes. Who was the first minister appointed under the covenant? Edmund Fawcett, Harry said. He served from 1692 to 1715, and was responsible for establishing the original structure of the ministry. The questions continued, faster and more difficult. Harry answered them all, his voice steady, his mind racing through the pages of the ancient tome he'd memorized. He recited laws and precedents, named names and dates, described the intricate web of bloodlines that connected the noble houses. Finally, Arcturus Black asked the last question. What is the punishment for a minister who violates the covenant? Harry met her gaze. The minister forfeits their authority, he said. Their power passes to the next eligible heir of the Peveril line. Arcturus nodded slowly. The trial of knowledge is complete. The heir has passed. Harry felt a surge of relief, but he knew it wasn't over. The second stage was coming, and it would be more difficult than the first. The trial of courage, Vol announced. The heir will be tested in combat. Harry's heart lurched. Combat? But I'm 9 years old, I barely know any spells. You will not be fighting with spells, Vol said. You will be fighting with courage. The arena will create a manifestation of your worst fear. You must face it and overcome it. The stone circle began to shift, the ground rippling like water. Shadows rose from the floor, coalescing into a shape that made Harry's blood run cold. It was the Dursleys. All three of them, their faces twisted with rage. Uncle Vernon's fists were clenched, his face purple with fury. Aunt Petunia's lips were pressed into a thin, cruel line. And Dudley was grinning, his eyes gleaming with malicious delight. But this was different from the real Dursleys. These shadows had power. Their eyes glowed with dark magic, and the air around them crackled with menace. "You failed," Uncle Vernon's shadow snarled. "You'll always fail. You're a freak, a useless, worthless freak." Harry felt the old fear rise up, the familiar knot of shame and self-loathing that had lived in his chest for as long as he could remember. The Dursleys had told him he was worthless every day of his life. He'd believed them. He'd had no reason not to. But that was before. Before the letter. Before Gringotts. Before the covenant. And the ring and the truth about his parents. "You're wrong," Harry said, his voice shaking but clear. "You've always been wrong. I'm not worthless. I'm not a freak. I'm Harry Potter, and I'm the heir of Peveril. I have more power in my little finger than you'll ever have." The shadow Dursleys advanced, their forms flickering and shifting. "You're nothing," they hissed. "You've always been nothing. Your parents abandoned you because they didn't want you." The words hit Harry like a physical blow. He'd always wondered, in his darkest moments, if his parents had really loved him. If they'd wanted him. If there was something wrong with him that had made them leave. But no. That was a lie. The Dursleys had been telling him lies for years, and he believed them because he hadn't known any better. But now he knew the truth. His parents had died for him. They'd loved him more than anything. "They didn't abandon me," Harry said, his voice growing stronger. "They died to protect me. And I'm going to make them proud. I'm going to tear down the Ministry and build a better world. A world where no one has to be afraid." The shadow Dursleys screamed, their forms dissolving into smoke. The dark magic that had animated them faded, and the stone circle returned to its original state. Harry stood in the center, breathing hard, his heart racing. But he'd done it. He'd faced his fear and overcome it. "The trial of courage is complete," Vol said. "The heir has passed." Harry felt a surge of exultation. 2 down. 1 to go. "The trial of wisdom," Arcturus announced. "The heir will be presented with a moral dilemma. He must choose the correct course of action." The stone circle shifted again, and Harry found himself standing in a small room. Across from him, a man in ministry robes was holding a wand to the head of a young woman who looked hauntingly familiar. His mother. "Choose," the man said, his voice cold. "Save yourself, or save her. You cannot do both." Harry's heart stopped. His mother. His mother was here, and she was in danger. He could save her. He had to save her. But that was the point, wasn't it? The trial was testing his wisdom, testing whether he could see through the illusion and make the right choice. "This isn't real," he said, his voice trembling. "You're a test. An illusion. Choose," the man repeated. "Save yourself or save her. The choice is yours." Harry looked at his mother's face, at the terror in her eyes. He wanted to save her more than anything. He wanted to rush forward and tear the man away from her. But that would be the wrong choice. The trial wasn't about saving his mother. It was about seeing through the trap. "No," he said, his voice firm. "I won't choose. This is a trick. A manipulation. You want me to make the wrong choice, and I won't do it." The man laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the room. "You're wrong. This is a real test. Your mother's life is at stake. If you don't choose, she dies." Harry looked at his mother's face, and he saw something that made his heart ache. A flicker of hope. A smile, faint but real. "Harry," she said, her voice soft. "You're so brave. Your father would be so proud." And then the illusion dissolved, and Harry was back in the stone circle, tears streaming down his face. The trial of wisdom is complete, Arcturus said. The heir has passed. The tribunal rose as one, their faces unreadable. Fudge was sputtering, his face red with rage. Umbridge was staring at Harry with undisguised hatred. This is absurd, Fudge said. A child passing some silly tests doesn't give him authority over the ministry. The law is clear. The law is irrelevant, Arcturus cut in. The covenant is paramount. The heir has passed all 3 trials. His claim is valid. Harry looked at the ring on his finger, the emerald pulsing with steady light. He'd done it. He'd passed the trial. He was the legal heir to the ministry. But the fight wasn't over. Far from it. The ministry will not recognize this, Fudge said, his voice shaking. I will issue a statement to the press. I will rally the Wizengamot. I will. You will do nothing, Dumbledore said, stepping forward. The covenant has been verified. The trials have been completed. The heir's claim is legal and binding. Any attempt to challenge it will be met with the full force of Goblin law. Vol nodded, his ancient eyes gleaming. Gringotts stands with the heir. We will enforce the covenant, whatever the cost. Fudge's face had gone pale. You can't do this. The ministry has the Aurors. The Aurors are servants of the ministry, Dumbledore said. And the ministry belongs to Harry Potter. Refusing to recognize his claim is an act of treason. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Fudge swayed on his feet, his composure crumbling. We'll see about that, Umbridge spat. The Wizengamot will never accept this. We'll fight it in the courts. We'll expose the Goblin conspiracy. You'll do nothing, Arcturus said, her voice cold as ice. The tribunal has spoken. The heir's claim is valid. Any attempt to subvert the covenant will be met with immediate and decisive action. Umbridge's face contorted with fury, but she was smart enough to hold her tongue. For now. Harry stepped forward, his voice steady. I don't want to fight. I don't want to tear down the ministry. I want to restore it. I want to make it what it was meant to be, a servant of the people, not a master. Fudge stared at him, his eyes wide. You're just a child. What do you know about running a government? More than you, apparently, Harry said. I've spent the last month studying the history of the ministry. I know about the corruption. The cronyism. The laws that serve the powerful at the expense of the weak. And I'm going to fix all of it. The words echoed through the vault, their force silencing the last of the arguments. Arcturus Black stepped forward. The tribunal confirms. The heir's claim. Harry James Potter is recognized as the legal owner of the Ministry of Magic. The Covenant of 1692 is reinstated. All members of the ministry are to recognize his authority, or face the consequences of their treason. Fudge opened his mouth to protest, but no words came out. He stood there, his face pale and haggard, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. This isn't over, Umbridge hissed. You may have won today, but you haven't won the war. The Wizengamot will fight you. The noble houses will fight you. The ministry will fight you. Let them, Harry said. I'm ready. He looked at the ring on his finger, at the emerald that pulsed with steady, reassuring light. He thought of his parents, who had died for a better world. He thought of the people who had been crushed by the ministry's corruption. He thought of all the children like him, who had been told they were worthless and made to believe it. I'm the heir of Peveril, he said. The legal owner of the Ministry of Magic. And I'm going to use that power to make things right. Whatever it takes. The aftermath of the tribunal was chaos. Word of Harry's claim spread through the magical world like wildfire. The Daily Prophet ran the story on its front page, accompanied by a photograph of Harry looking small and scared and utterly out of his depth. The Wizarding Wireless was filled with debates and arguments, pundits and politicians taking sides in the rapidly escalating crisis. But Harry was at Hogwarts, safe behind the ancient wards, studying. He had new tutors now, lawyers and historians and political strategists who had been waiting for this moment for years. They taught him about the structure of the ministry, the powers of the various departments, the labyrinthine web of regulations and precedents that govern the magical world. And they taught him about the enemies he would face. Minister Fudge is a weak man, one of his tutors, a sharp-eyed witch named Elphinstone. Doge told him. He surrounded himself with sycophants and yes-men. Without their support, he'll crumble. The real danger is the Wisengamot. The Wisengamot, Harry repeated. What's wrong with them? Doge's face grew grim. The Wisengamot is dominated by the old families. The Malfoys, the Blacks, the Lestranges, they've held power for centuries, and they won't give it up without a fight. They see your claim as a direct threat to their authority. And what about the others? Harry asked. The families who aren't part of the old guard. There are some who will support you, Doge said. The Longbottoms, the Weasleys, the Bones, they've always opposed the corruption. But they're outnumbered. And they're afraid. The old families have been known to use more than just political pressure to achieve their goals. Harry's hand moved to the ring on his finger. Then I'll need to show them that I'm not afraid. That I'm willing to fight. Doge nodded slowly. That's what I'm counting on, Harry. That's what we're all counting on. The days passed in a blur of study and preparation. Harry learned about the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, which had been corrupted into a tool of political repression. He learned about the improper use of Magic Office, which had been used to persecute Muggleborns and Half-Bloods. He learned about the Wisengamot secret sessions, where laws were passed in the dead of night without public scrutiny. The more he learned, the more determined he became. The ministry wasn't just corrupted. It was a cancer, growing and spreading until it threatened to destroy everything good in the magical world. And he was the only one who could stop it. But he also learned about the people who would help him. The Goblins, who had preserved the Covenant for centuries. The Order of the Phoenix, the secret society that had fought against the Dark Lord. The unsung heroes who had risked everything to expose the ministry's lies. They're counting on me. Harry told Dumbledore one evening, as they sat in the headmaster's office watching the stars will overhead. All of them. The Goblins. The Order. The people who've been suffering under the ministry's tyranny. They're all counting on me, and I can't let them down. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled in the firelight. You won't let them down, Harry. You have the courage, the wisdom, and the heart to do what needs to be done. I have never doubted that. Harry looked at the old man, at the face that had become so familiar over the past month. Why do you believe in me? I'm just a kid. I don't know what I'm doing. Dumbledore leaned forward, his expression growing serious. I believe in you because I knew your parents. I saw the kind of people they were, the courage they had, the strength of their convictions. And I see those same qualities in you, Harry. You are not just your parents' son. You are their legacy. Their gift to the world. Harry felt tears prick at his eyes, but he blinked them away. He had to be strong. He had to be the person everyone was counting on. I won't let them down, he said again, his voice firm. I promise. The day of the Wisengamot session arrived without warning. Harry had been preparing for weeks, but he still felt woefully unprepared. The Wisengamot was the most powerful body in magical Britain, and they were about to decide his fate. He dressed in his best robes, the emerald ring on his finger pulsing with steady light. Dumbledore accompanied him to the ministry, through the Fleur network and into the atrium that had once been his ancestors' domain. But now it was his. His to claim. His to restore. The Wisengamot chamber was vast, a circular room with tiered seats rising on all sides. The members were already assembled, their faces a sea of suspicion and hostility. Fudge sat at the center of the chamber, his face pale and sweating. Umbridge was at his side, her expression one of barely concealed fury. Harry James Potter, Fudge said, his voice echoing through the chamber. You have been summoned to answer for your claim to the Ministry of Magic. Harry stepped forward, his heart pounding but his voice steady. I'm here to claim what is mine. The Covenant of 1692 names me as the heir of Peveril and the legal owner of the ministry. The chamber erupted in chaos. Voices rose in protest, accusing Harry of lying, of manipulating the goblins, of trying to overthrow legitimate government. But Harry stood his ground, his gaze fixed on Fudge. The covenant is legal and binding. The tribunal has confirmed it. The goblins have confirmed it. The only question now is whether the Wisengamot will accept the truth. A tall, blond man rose from his seat. His face was aristocratic and cold, his eyes gleaming with malice. The Wisengamot does not recognize the authority of any document that has been hidden for centuries. The boy's claim is an invention, a fiction designed to destabilize our government. Harry recognized the man from his studies. Lucius Malfoy, head of one of the most powerful families in Britain. A known associate of the Dark Lord. A man who had everything to lose from Harry's claim. Your family has been corrupting the ministry for generations, Harry said, his voice clear. You've used your power to enrich yourself at the expense of the people. And now that you're being called to account, you're trying to hide behind legal technicalities. Malfoy's face flushed with anger. How dare you? I dare because it's the truth, Harry cut in. The truth is that the ministry was founded as a servant of the Peveril family. The truth is that the covenant has been hidden for centuries because you and your allies didn't want anyone to know the truth. The truth is that your power is built on lies, and I'm here to tear those lies down. The chamber fell silent. Harry could feel the weight of every gaze on him, the hostility radiating from the old families. But he also saw something else. A flicker of hope in the eyes of the younger members. A spark of defiance in the faces of those who had been oppressed. I'm not here to destroy the ministry, Harry said, his voice softer now. I'm here to restore it. To make it what it was meant to be, a government of the people, by the people, for the people. A government that serves magical Britain, not the interests of the powerful few. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Some members looked away, unable to meet his gaze. Others nodded slowly, their faces thoughtful. Fudge stood up, his voice trembling. The Wisengamot will now vote on the boy's claim. All those in favor of recognizing Harry James Potter as the legal owner of the ministry, please raise your hands. The silence stretched. Harry held his breath, his heart pounding. Then a hand went up. And another. And another. Slowly, hesitantly, the members of the Wisengamot began to raise their hands. Some looked pleased, others resigned, but the majority of them were voting in his favor. Fudge's face had gone white. The yeas have it, he said, his voice barely a whisper. The claim is recognized. Harry stood in the center of the Wisengamot chamber, the ring on his finger pulsing with triumphant light. He'd done it. He'd claimed the ministry. He'd proven his worth to the magical world. But he knew, even as the chamber erupted in applause, that this was only the beginning. The fight was far from over. The old families would continue to resist. The corruption would continue to fester. The ministry would need to be rebuilt from the ground up. And he would be the one to do it. He thought of his parents, who had died for a better world. He thought of the goblins, who had preserved the covenant for centuries. He thought of Dumbledore, who had believed in him when no one else did. I won't let you down, he whispered. I promise. And as the applause died down and the Wisengamot began to file out, Harry Potter stood tall in the center of the chamber, the weight of the world on his shoulders and the light of hope in his eyes. He was the heir of Peveril. The legal owner of the Ministry of Magic. And he was ready to change the world. End of Chapter 2. Chapter 3, The Political Earthquake. The morning after the Wisengamot vote, Harry woke to find the Daily Prophet waiting outside his tower room door, its headline screaming in bold black letters. Boy claims ministry, magical Britain in chaos. He read the article twice, his stomach churning with a mixture of triumph and dread. The Prophet had pulled no punches. The lead columnist, a woman named Rita Skeeter, had described Harry as a dangerous upstart and an uneducated child with delusions of grandeur. She'd quoted anonymous sources within the ministry calling the covenant a goblin forgery and the tribunal a sham proceeding. She'd even managed to dig up the Dursleys, who had given a tearful interview about how Harry had been a troubled and ungrateful child who had run away from their loving home. But the article also contained something unexpected: support. A junior ministry official had spoken out in Harry's favor, describing the corruption he'd witnessed firsthand. A retired Auror had written a letter to the editor, praising Harry's courage and urging the magical community to give him a chance. And several of the noble houses had issued statements of cautious support, their loyalty to the old order clearly wavering. Harry set down the paper, his mind racing. The political landscape was shifting. The old families were divided, some clinging to their power while others scrambled to ally themselves with the new regime. The ministry was in turmoil, its officials unsure whether to obey Fudge or the new owner of their institution. And somewhere out there, the Dark Lord's followers were watching, waiting for their moment to strike. "Your first meeting with the ministry department heads is in 2 hours, Dumbledore said, appearing in the doorway. "I've taken the liberty of preparing some briefing materials. The transition will not be smooth, but it will be swift. We must act before the opposition can consolidate." Harry nodded, reaching for the stack of parchment the headmaster had brought. "What's the mood in the ministry?" "Chaotic," Dumbledore admitted. "Fudge has barricaded himself in his office. The department heads are divided. Some have pledged their loyalty to you, others are preparing to resist. The Aurors are standing by, uncertain which way to turn. And the Wisengamot? Watching. Waiting. The vote was close. Many of the old families are furious, but they're also afraid. They don't know how far you'll go, how much power you'll claim." Harry looked down at the ring on his finger, the emerald pulsing with steady light. "Then I need to show them," he said. "I need to show everyone that I'm not a threat to the good people of magical Britain. Only to the ones who've been abusing their power." Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. "That, Harry, is exactly the right approach." The Ministry of Magic was a fortress of golden marble and glittering dark stone. Harry stood in the atrium, surrounded by a crowd of officials and journalists, his heart pounding as he looked up at the enormous statue that dominated the space. It was a golden figure of a wizard, his hand raised in a gesture of command, his face frozen in an expression of arrogant authority. Beneath his feet, carved in smaller scale, were figures of goblins and house elves, their faces downturned in submission. The statue was a monument to everything that was wrong with the ministry. It was a symbol of oppression, of the old order's contempt for those they deemed beneath them. "I want this removed," Harry said, his voice carrying across the atrium. "This statue represents everything I'm here to change." The ministry was meant to serve all magical beings, not to elevate some above others. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some officials nodded, others looked uneasy. Harry saw Umbridge in the back, her face twisted with fury, but he ignored her. "Today," Harry continued, "I'm going to begin the process of restoring the ministry to its original purpose. I've spoken with the goblins, and they've agreed to assist in the reforms. Gringotts will provide oversight, to ensure that the ministry's resources are being used for the benefit of all magical Britain." The murmur grew louder. Harry could see fear and hope warring in the faces around him. "I'm not here to punish anyone," he said, his voice softening. "I'm here to build a better future. A future where every magical being has a voice. Where justice is not a tool of the powerful, but a shield for the vulnerable. Where the ministry is transparent, accountable, and just." He paused, his gaze sweeping across the assembly. "Those who want to be part of that future are welcome to stay. Those who don't, are welcome to leave." The silence was absolute. Harry could feel the weight of every gaze, the tension of 1,000 unspoken questions. And then, slowly, a young witch at the back of the crowd began to clap. Another joined her. Then another. The applause spread like wildfire, growing louder and more fervent until the atrium was filled with the sound of approval. Harry felt tears prick at his eyes, but he blinked them away. He had to be strong. He had to be the leader everyone was counting on. "Thank you," he said, his voice barely audible above the din. "Thank you. Let's begin." The first department head Harry met with was Amelia Bones, the head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. She was a formidable woman, tall and severe, with an eye patch that gave her an air of no-nonsense authority. Harry had read about her in the histories, a reformer who had been fighting against the ministry's corruption for years, often at great personal cost. "Madam Bones," Harry said, shaking her hand. "Thank you for coming." Bones's grip was firm, her gaze piercing. "I'll be honest with you, Mr. Potter. I have reservations. You're young. Inexperienced. The forces arrayed against you are powerful and ruthless." "I know," Harry said. "But I have something they don't have. The truth. And the will to use it." Bones studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then, slowly, she nodded. "I believe you. I've been fighting the ministry's corruption for years, and I've seen the truth of your claim in the evidence I've gathered. The covenant is real. The Gringotts vote was legitimate. You are the legal owner of this institution." Harry felt a surge of relief. "Then you'll help me?" Bones's jaw tightened. "I'll help you. But understand this, Mr. Potter, I don't trust easily, and I don't give my loyalty freely. If you prove to be just another power-hungry tyrant, I'll turn against you as quickly as I've turned against Fudge." "I wouldn't expect anything less," Harry said. "The truth is all I have. And I'll prove it to you, Madam Bones. I'll prove it to everyone." The next days were a whirlwind of meetings and decisions. Harry met with the heads of every department in the ministry, from the Department of Mysteries to the Muggleworthy Excuse Committee. He listened to their concerns, their fears, their hopes for the future. He took notes, asked questions, and gradually began to form a picture of what needed to be done. The Department of Magical Law Enforcement was the first priority. Bones had compiled a dossier on the corruption within her department, and Harry read it with growing horror. Horrors had been used to suppress political dissent, to protect the interests of the old families, to silence those who dared to speak out against the ministry's abuses. "These horrors need to be removed," Harry said, his voice tight with anger. "Every single one of them who used their power to oppress innocent people. I want them investigated. I want them prosecuted." Bones nodded grimly. "Already in progress. But we'll need your authority to make it stick. The old families will fight this. They'll claim we're witch hunting." "Let them," Harry said. "The truth is on our side." He also met with the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures, which had been responsible for centuries of discrimination against goblins, house elves, and werewolves. The department head was an elderly wizard named Runcorn, who had been appointed by Fudge and was clearly resistant to change. "The goblins have their place," Runcorn said, his nose in the air. "They're good with money, I'll grant you, but they have no business meddling in human affairs. And house elves, well, they're meant to serve, aren't they? It's in their nature." Harry felt his blood run hot. "Their nature? You mean the nature that's been forced upon them by centuries of oppression? The nature that was shaped by humans who wanted to keep them in chains?" Runcorn's face reddened. "Now, see here, Mr. Potter, you may think you know everything, but you're just a child. You don't understand the complexities of—" "I understand that you've been persecuting innocent beings for centuries," Harry cut in. "I understand that the laws you've passed are designed to keep them in their place. And I understand that it's going to stop. Today." He stood up, his voice ringing through the office. "Effective immediately, all discriminatory laws against magical creatures are suspended pending review. The Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures will be restructured to serve the interests of all magical beings, not just humans. And you, Runcorn, you're fired." The elderly wizard sputtered, his face cycling through several shades of purple. "You can't, you don't have the authority." "I have all the authority I need," Harry said. "I'm the owner of the ministry. And I'm going to use that authority to make things right. If you don't like it, there's the door." Runcorn stormed out, his robes billowing behind him. Harry watched him go, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and exhaustion. "Another enemy," Dumbledore said, appearing at his side. "You're making quite a collection." "He was corrupt," Harry said. "He needed to go. Indeed he did, Dumbledore agreed. But be careful, Harry. The old families will use every dismissal, every reform, as ammunition against you. They'll paint you as a tyrant, a child playing at being king. Harry met the old man's gaze. Then I'll have to show them I'm not. I'll have to show everyone that I'm doing this for them. Not for power. Not for revenge. For the good of magical Britain. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. That, my boy, is exactly the right approach. The next week brought new challenges and new victories. Harry announced the creation of a new council, composed of representatives from every magical community in Britain. Goblins, house elves, werewolves, centaurs, all were invited to participate in the governance of the magical world. The move was unprecedented, and it was met with fierce opposition from the old families. "They're animals," Lucius Malfoy snarled, when Harry met with the leaders of the noble houses. "You can't give them a voice in the government. They'll destroy everything we've built." Harry met his gaze, his voice cold. "Everything you've built is a lie. The ministry was founded to serve all magical beings. The old families twisted it to serve themselves. I'm just restoring it to its original purpose." Malfoy's face contorted with fury. "You'll regret this, Potter. I promise you that. The old families won't forget what you've done." "Neither will I," Harry said. "I won't forget what you've done to the people of magical Britain. And I won't stop until justice has been done." The meeting ended in acrimony, but Harry had expected that. The old families would fight him every step of the way. But he had allies too. Madame Bones was implementing sweeping reforms in the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. The goblins were providing oversight and ensuring that the ministry's resources were being used honestly. And the house elves, for the first time in centuries, were being given a voice in their own governance. "We're making progress," Harry told Dumbledore that evening, as they sat in the headmaster's office watching the stars wheel overhead. "It's slow, but it's happening. The ministry is starting to change." Dumbledore nodded slowly. "You're doing well, Harry. But the real test is yet to come. The old families won't give up easily. They'll try to destroy you through legal means, through political maneuvering, through assassination," Harry finished. "I know. I've been preparing for that." Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. "Have you?" "I've been training with the Aurors," Harry said. "Learning defensive spells. Combat techniques. I've also been reading about the wards at Hogwarts, learning how to strengthen them." Dumbledore smiled. "Excellent. But there's more to protecting yourself than spells and wards. You need allies. Trustworthy people who will stand with you when the storm breaks." Harry nodded slowly. "I know. I've been thinking about that. The Weasleys, I've read about them. They're a large family, fiercely loyal, and they've opposed the old families for years. I've been considering offering them positions in the new ministry." "A wise choice," Dumbledore said. "The Weasleys are among the bravest and most honorable families in magical Britain. They'll be loyal to you, and they'll bring their allies with them." Harry smiled, the first genuine smile he'd felt in weeks. "I'll send an owl tomorrow. I want to meet them. I want to build a team of people I can trust." "That," Dumbledore said, "is exactly the right approach." The meeting with the Weasleys was arranged for the following week. Harry traveled to the Burrow, a ramshackle house that seemed to be held together by magic and sheer determination. It was a far cry from the opulent homes of the old families, but Harry felt more at home there than he'd ever felt anywhere. Arthur Weasley was a balding man with a kind face and a passion for Muggle artifacts. He welcomed Harry with open arms, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "Harry Potter. I've heard so much about you. The things you're doing, the reforms, it's incredible. Absolutely incredible." Harry smiled, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. "Thank you, Mr. Weasley. I've heard a lot about you too. The work you've done for the ministry, it's been invaluable." Arthur's face flushed with pleasure. "Oh, I don't know about that. I just do what I can. But the things you're planning, it's going to change the world." The rest of the Weasley family was equally warm. Molly Weasley, a round and motherly woman, immediately began fussing over Harry, insisting that he was too thin and plying him with food. The children, a chaotic mix of redheads ranging from a toddler to a young man of about 17, were curious and friendly, peppering Harry with questions about his life and his plans. "You're really going to change the Ministry?" asked Ron Weasley, a boy about Harry's age with a shock of red hair and a scattering of freckles across his nose. "You're going to make it better? For everyone?" Harry nodded. "I'm going to try. I can't promise it'll be easy, or quick. But I'll never stop trying." Ron grinned. "Good. Because the Ministry has been rubbish for years. Everyone knows it. They just don't do anything about it." "Harry's doing something about it," Ginny Weasley, the youngest, said with fierce conviction. "And he's going to win." Harry felt a lump form in his throat. The Weasleys didn't know him well, but they believed in him. They trusted him. And that trust was more precious than any political alliance. "Thank you," he said, his voice slightly hoarse. "All of you. I won't let you down." The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of change. Harry implemented sweeping reforms across every department of the Ministry. He created new oversight committees. He purged corrupt officials. He restored the rights of magical creatures. He opened the Ministry's archives to public scrutiny, exposing decades of secrets and lies. The old families fought him at every turn. They filed legal challenges, they leaked damaging stories to the press, they tried to undermine his authority at every opportunity. But Harry was relentless, his commitment to justice unwavering. "I'm not going to stop," he told a meeting of his closest allies. "The old families can fight me all they want, but they're on the wrong side of history. The people of magical Britain want change. They want justice. And I'm going to give it to them." Amelia Bones nodded, her expression grim but determined. "We're seeing results, Harry. The crime rate is dropping. Public confidence in the Ministry is rising. Even some of the old families are starting to come around." "Which ones?" Harry asked. "The Greengrasses," Bones said. "The Longbottoms. Even some of the Blacks have expressed willingness to work with us." Harry felt a surge of hope. "That's good. That's really good. We need allies. We need to show the magical world that we're not just tearing things down, we're building something better." Dumbledore smiled, his eyes twinkling. "And you are, Harry. You truly are. The Ministry is becoming what it was always meant to be. A servant of the people, not a master." Harry looked at the ring on his finger, the emerald pulsing with steady light. He thought of his parents, who had died for a better world. He thought of the goblins, who had preserved the Covenant for centuries. He thought of the Weasleys, the Boneses, the Longbottoms, all the people who had believed in him and supported him. "I couldn't have done it without all of you," he said. "I know I'm young. I know I'm inexperienced. But I'm not alone. And that's what makes the difference." But even as Harry celebrated his victories, the opposition was plotting. In secret chambers, far from the public eye, the old families gathered. They shared their fears, their frustrations, their determination to stop the boy who threatened their power. "It's not just the reforms," Lucius Malfoy said, his voice cold and precise. "It's his very existence. As long as Harry Potter lives, we'll never be safe. He'll never stop until he's destroyed everything we've built. He must be removed," Bellatrix Lestrange said, her eyes gleaming with fanatical fervor. "The Dark Lord would have wanted it. He would have praised us for it." "He's dead," one of the other nobles said. "The Dark Lord is gone. We have to think about our own survival." "Survival?" Bellatrix laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the chamber. "There is no survival without the Dark Lord. And there is no future with Harry Potter in power. We must strike. We must strike now." Malfoy nodded slowly. "I agree. But we must be careful. The boy has allies now, Dumbledore, the Weasleys, the Goblins. We can't attack him directly. We have to be subtle." Subtle, Bellatrix repeated, her voice dripping with contempt. You've been subtle for years, and look where it's got us. The ministry is in the hands of a child. The old families are being destroyed. It's time for action. Malfoy's jaw tightened. Action will come. But we must be strategic. We must weaken his allies, one by one. We must destroy his support network. And then, when he's alone and unprotected, we'll strike. The chamber fell silent, the weight of his words settling over them. I've already set things in motion, Malfoy continued. The goblins are being targeted. Some of the more moderate families are being pressured to withdraw their support. And I've made contact with the ministry officials who still hold positions of power. How? Bellatrix asked. Malfoy smiled, a cold, reptilian expression. The Wizengamot has not been fully purged. There are still sympathizers in high places. And they've been very helpful in providing information. Information, Bellatrix repeated. What kind of information? All kinds, Malfoy said. The boy's movements. His schedule. His weaknesses. His allies' weaknesses. Bellatrix leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. And what have you learned? Malfoy's smile widened. I've learned that Harry Potter, for all his power and his allies, is still just a child. A child who has lost his parents and his family. A child who longs for connection, for love. A child who can be manipulated. The chamber fell silent, the implications of his words hanging in the air. Manipulated, Bellatrix repeated. How? Malfoy leaned back, his eyes gleaming with triumph. Through his friends. His teachers. His allies. We'll turn them against him, one by one. We'll destroy the people he trusts most. And when he's alone, completely alone, we'll strike. The first attack came 3 weeks later. Harry was visiting the Goblin Nation, discussing the next phase of reforms with Griphook and Vol. The meeting was productive, the goblins pleased with the progress Harry had made in restoring their rights. The changes you've implemented are significant, Griphook said, his voice carrying a note of approval. The ministry's attitude toward goblins has improved markedly. But there is still much to be done. I know, Harry said. I'm working on it. The next phase of reforms will address the banking laws that have been used to discriminate against non-humans. Vol nodded slowly. Good. But be careful, Harry. There are those who would oppose these changes. They will stop at nothing to prevent the reforms. Harry met his ancient gaze. I know. I'm prepared. The meeting ended, and Harry made his way back to the surface. But as he emerged from the depths of Gringotts, he was met by chaos. The leaky cauldron was in flames. Harry stood frozen, watching the flames lick at the ancient wooden structure. The patrons were fleeing, their faces twisted with panic. The fire had spread to the surrounding buildings, and Diagon Alley was in turmoil. What happened? Harry demanded, grabbing the arm of a fleeing wizard. How did this start? I don't know, the wizard said, his voice shaking. It came out of nowhere. One moment everything was fine, the next, boom. Harry felt a chill run down his spine. This was no accident. This was an attack. An attack on the heart of Diagon Alley. An attack on the goblins, who had been his allies. Harry, we need to go, Dumbledore said, appearing at his side. The flames are spreading. We have to get everyone to safety. Harry nodded, pushing aside his anger and fear. The people first. Then we find out who's behind this. The rescue operation was massive. Harry worked alongside the Aurors and the Unspeakables, using every spell he knew to contain the flames and evacuate the injured. He saw the worst of it, children separated from their parents, witches and wizards burned beyond recognition, buildings reduced to smoldering ruins. By the time the flames were finally extinguished, Harry was exhausted. His robes were singed, his face was blackened with soot, and his hands were shaking with a mixture of rage and grief. 23 dead, Amelia Bones reported, her voice grim. Over 100 injured. The damage to Diagon Alley is catastrophic. Harry clenched his fists. Who did this? We're investigating, Bones said. But we have our suspicions. This bears the mark of the old families. Harry felt a cold fury surge through him. The old families. They tried to kill me. They tried to destroy everything I've built. Not just you, Bones said. The goblins. The people of Diagon Alley. Anyone who's been supporting your reforms. This was a message, Harry. A message that they will stop at nothing. Harry nodded slowly, his rage hardening into something colder and more determined. Then we fight back. We don't let them scare us. We don't let them stop us. We can't just launch a counterattack, Dumbledore warned. We need evidence. We need to prove who was responsible. Then we get evidence, Harry said. We use the full resources of the Ministry. We investigate. We find the truth. And then we bring them to justice. The words hung in the air like a vow. The investigation was intense and far-reaching. Harry personally oversaw it, working with Bones and her team to track down the perpetrators. The evidence pointed in a single direction, the old families. Specifically, the Malfoys and their allies. There were no direct witnesses, no smoking wand, but the circumstantial evidence was overwhelming. The fire had been started with a spell that only the darkest wizards knew. The timing had been impeccable, designed to coincide with Harry's meeting with the goblins. The Ministry is filing charges tomorrow, Bones said. Malfoy and his co-conspirators will be brought before the Wizengamot. But we have to be careful. The old families are powerful, and they have allies in high places. Let them come, Harry said. I'm not afraid of them. And I'm not going to let them get away with this. Bones nodded slowly. Neither am I, Harry. Neither am I. The trial was a spectacle. The Wizengamot chamber was packed, the galleries filled with journalists and spectators. Harry sat at the front, his face composed, his emotions carefully controlled. Lucius Malfoy was the first to be called to the stand. He denied everything with cold arrogance, his voice dripping with contempt for the proceedings. This is a farce, he declared. The boy has manufactured these charges to destroy his political opponents. There is no evidence, only accusations and speculation. Harry felt his anger rise, but he kept his voice calm. There is evidence, Mr. Malfoy. We have witnesses who saw your associates purchasing the dark materials used in the fire. We have financial records linking you to the conspiracy. And we have testimony from your own servants, who have confessed everything. Malfoy's face went white. Lies. All of it. You've bribed them. Threatened them. I've offered them protection, Harry said. Protection from the people who have been terrorizing them for years. The people who burned down Diagon Alley and murdered 23 innocent people. The chamber erupted in chaos. Malfoy was shouting, his composure finally crumbling. The other old families were rising to their feet, their voices raised in protest. But Harry stood firm, his gaze fixed on Malfoy. The truth is out, he said. The people of magical Britain know what you've done. And they're not going to let you get away with it. The vote was swift and decisive. Malfoy and his co-conspirators were found guilty on all counts. They were sentenced to Azkaban, their estates confiscated, their families stripped of their power and influence. The old families had been defeated. For now. But Harry knew the battle was far from over. The old families had been humiliated, but they were not destroyed. They would regroup, rebuild, and strike again. And there were other threats to face, the Dark Lord's followers, who were still out there, waiting for their moment. I need to be stronger, Harry told Dumbledore. I need to be smarter. More prepared. The old families will always be a threat, but I can't let them distract me from the real work. The reforms. The rebuilding. The healing. Dumbledore nodded slowly. That's a mature perspective, Harry. But you can't do it all alone. You need allies. Trusted friends who will stand with you no matter what. I know, Harry said. I've been thinking about that. I want to build a team. People I can trust absolutely. People who share my vision for a better magical Britain. That's a wise approach, Dumbledore said. Start with the Weasleys. They're loyal, brave, and fiercely committed to justice. Then expand outward. Build a network of allies who will support you when the dark times come. Harry nodded slowly. I'll do that. But first, I need to rest. And then I need to keep working. There's still so much to do. The weeks that followed were a blur of activity. Harry implemented the next phase of reforms. He created new departments dedicated to the welfare of magical creatures. He established an independent judiciary to ensure that justice was truly blind. He opened the ministry's archives to the public, exposing centuries of secrets and lies. The old families fought him at every turn. They filed legal challenges, they leaked damaging stories to the press, they tried to undermine his authority at every opportunity. But Harry was relentless, his commitment to justice unwavering. The people are with us, he told a meeting of his closest allies. The reforms are working. Magical Britain is changing, becoming what it was always meant to be. And we're not going to stop until the job is done. Amelia Bones nodded, her expression grim but determined. We're seeing results, Harry. The crime rate is dropping. Public confidence in the ministry is rising. Even some of the old families are starting to come around. Harry smiled, the first genuine smile he'd felt in weeks. That's good. That's really good. We're making progress. But even as he spoke, he knew the real test was yet to come. The old families had been defeated, but they had not been destroyed. They would regroup, rebuild, and strike again. And this time, they would be even more dangerous. I'm ready, Harry whispered to himself. Whatever comes, I'm ready. The night was dark and moonless when the attack came. Harry was in his tower room at Hogwarts, studying the next phase of reforms, when the wards suddenly flared with warning. He was on his feet in an instant, his wand in his hand, his heart pounding. What is it? He demanded, his voice echoing through the empty room. A figure appeared in the doorway, a house elf, its eyes wide with terror. The ministry, sir. It's under attack. Harry felt a cold chill run down his spine. The ministry. His ministry. The symbol of everything he was trying to build. I'm coming, he said, his voice steady despite the fear. Get Dumbledore. Get the Weasleys. Tell them to meet me in the atrium. The house elf vanished with a pop, and Harry was alone. He looked at the ring on his finger, the emerald pulsing with steady light. He thought of his parents, who had died for a better world. He thought of the people of magical Britain, who were counting on him. He thought of the old families, who would stop at nothing to destroy what he was building. I'm not going to let them win, he said. I'm not going to let them destroy everything I've built. He stepped into the fireplace and vanished in a flash of green flame. The ministry was in chaos. Harry emerged in the atrium to find the golden statue shattered, its pieces scattered across the marble floor. The flames of the fireplaces had been doused, and the windows were shattered, letting in the cold night air. Horrors were everywhere, dueling with masked figures who seemed to appear out of nowhere. Harry joined the battle, his spells flying with deadly accuracy. He was no longer the frightened child who had stumbled into Diagon Alley months ago. He was a warrior, a leader, a fighter for justice. He saw Arthur Weasley battling a Death Eater. He saw Dumbledore dueling 3 of them at once, his spells creating walls of flame and barriers of light. He saw the goblins joining the fight, their ancient magic adding to the chaos. And he saw Malfoy, stripped of his power and influence, leading the attack. Potter! Malfoy shouted, his face twisted with rage. You've taken everything from me. My family. My fortune. My future. I'll make you pay. Harry met his charge, his wand raised. You've made your own choices, Malfoy. You chose corruption and greed and hatred. And now you're paying the price. The duel was intense, spells ricocheting off the walls and shattering the remains of the golden statue. Harry was younger, less experienced. But he was faster and more determined. He dodged Malfoy's curses, his own spells flying with increasing precision. "You're nothing but a child," Malfoy screamed. "A pathetic, worthless child who got lucky." Harry didn't respond. He didn't need to. His spells were doing the talking, gradually wearing down Malfoy's defenses. Finally, with a cry of rage, Malfoy's wand flew out of his hand and clattered to the floor. "It's over," Harry said, his voice cold. "You've lost." Malfoy's face contorted with fury. "It's never over, Potter. You think you've won, but you're wrong. The old families will never stop fighting. The Dark Lord will never stop fighting. And one day, you'll fall. Just like your parents." Harry felt a surge of rage at the mention of his parents, but he forced himself to stay calm. "Maybe I will fall someday. But not today. And not because of you." He turned to the Aurors. "Take him away." The aftermath of the attack was devastating. 23 more people had died. Dozens more were injured. The ministry was in ruins, its golden halls blackened and scarred by the battle. But Harry was still standing. And so were his allies. "We'll rebuild," he said. "We'll make it stronger than before. The people who did this won't win. They can't win. Because we have something they don't have. We have hope. We have courage. We have the will to fight for what's right." The applause was thunderous, echoing through the shattered atrium. Harry stood in the midst of it, his heart full of gratitude and determination. He had faced the greatest challenge of his life and emerged victorious. The old families had been defeated, their leaders captured and their power broken. The ministry was in ruins, but it would be rebuilt stronger than before. And Harry Potter, 9 years old, had proven himself a worthy heir to the Peveril legacy. "Let's begin," he said, his voice ringing through the atrium. "Let's build a new ministry. A ministry that serves the people. A ministry that brings justice and equality to all magical beings." The applause grew even louder, and Harry knew that he was not alone. He had allies, friends, and supporters who believed in him and his vision for a better magical Britain. The future was bright. And Harry Potter was ready to face it. End of Chapter 3. Chapter 4, The Trial of Ownership. The morning of the ancient magical tribunal dawned grey and heavy, clouds pressing down on Hogwarts like a physical weight. Harry stood at the window of his tower room, watching the mist curl around the distant mountains. His reflection stared back at him from the glass, a thin boy with wild black hair and glasses held together with tape, the emerald ring on his finger pulsing with a light that seemed to grow brighter with each passing day. He had been preparing for this moment for months. The first tribunal, the one that had confirmed his claim to the Wizengamot, had been a formality compared to what lay ahead. This was the ancient magical tribunal, a trial that would test not just his legal right to the ministry, but his very soul. It was a trial that had been designed by the Peveril family themselves, a safeguard against unworthy heirs who might claim the covenant for selfish purposes. "Are you ready?" Dumbledore's voice came from the doorway. The headmaster was dressed in his finest robes, his long white beard neatly trimmed, his expression one of quiet concern. Harry turned from the window. "I've studied everything. The histories, the rituals, the tests. But I don't know if that's enough. This isn't like the first trial. This is different." "It is," Dumbledore agreed. "The ancient tribunal is not a test of knowledge or courage. It is a test of the soul. It will show you who you truly are, Harry. It will reveal the parts of yourself you've tried to hide. And it will judge you accordingly." Harry felt a chill run down his spine. "What if I fail?" Dumbledore was silent for a long moment. "Then the covenant will pass to the next eligible heir. There are distant cousins, as you know. The ministry will remain under the control of the Peveril line, but you will have no part in it. Your claim will be forfeit, and your place in history will be that of the heir who was found unworthy." Harry nodded slowly, absorbing the weight of those words. "Then I have to succeed. I have to prove myself worthy." Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. I believe you will, Harry. I have always believed in you. The tribunal was held in a chamber beneath Gringotts, deeper than any vault Harry had ever visited. The journey down had taken an hour, through winding tunnels lit by torches that burned with a cold blue flame. The air grew colder and thinner the deeper they went, and Harry could feel the weight of ancient magic pressing down on him, heavy and watchful. The chamber itself was vast, its walls carved from obsidian that seemed to absorb all light. In the center of the space stood a stone circle, its surface etched with runes that glowed with a faint silver light. Beyond the circle, tiered seats rose into the darkness, filled with shadowy figures that Harry couldn't quite make out. These are the Ancient Ones, Vol whispered, his voice barely audible. The founders of the Covenant. Their spirits have been bound to this place for centuries, waiting for the day when another heir would come to be judged. Harry felt his heart race. They're dead. I'm being judged by ghosts. They are more than ghosts, Vol said. They are the embodiment of the Covenant itself. They have witnessed every heir who has come before you. They have judged them all. And they will judge you. Harry stepped into the stone circle, his footsteps echoing in the vast silence. The runes beneath his feet flared with light, and he felt the presence of the Ancient Ones pressing in on him from all sides. State your name, a voice boomed, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. Harry James Potter, Harry said, his voice steady despite his trembling hands. State your claim. I am the last surviving heir of the ancient and noble house of Peveril. I claim the Ministry of Magic in accordance with the Covenant of 1692, which established the ministry as an instrument of my ancestors' authority. The runes beneath his feet flared brighter, and Harry felt the Ancient One's attention focus on him with an intensity that made his skin prickle. The claim is recognized, the voice said. The trial will now begin. You will be tested in 3 ways, the test of the past, the test of the present, and the test of the future. Each test will reveal a truth about yourself that you must confront. If you succeed, the covenant will be yours. If you fail, it will pass to another. Harry nodded, his jaw set with determination. I'm ready. The test of the past was the first to come. The stone circle dissolved around Harry, and he found himself standing in a place he recognized. The cupboard under the stairs at number 4, Privet Drive. He was small again, his knees pressed against his chest, his ears straining to hear the sounds of the Dursleys' footsteps above him. First memory, the ancient voice said. The beginning. Harry watched as his younger self, a child of perhaps 4 or 5, cowered in the darkness, his face streaked with tears, his small body trembling with fear. The cupboard door was locked, as it always was when Uncle Vernon was particularly angry. And outside, Harry could hear the muffled sounds of Dudley's birthday party, the laughter and the music and the joy that he was never allowed to share. The child is alone, the voice said. Abandoned. Unloved. He believes he is worthless because he has been told so every day of his life. Harry felt a surge of anger, not at the Ancient Ones, but at the memory itself. They were wrong, he said. I know that now. They were wrong about everything. Knowing is not the same as believing, the voice said. The child in the cupboard still believes he is worthless. You have carried that belief with you, Harry Potter. It has shaped every decision you've made, every relationship you've formed. No, Harry said, his voice fierce. That's not true. I've overcome that. I've proven myself. I'm not worthless. The scene shifted, and Harry was older now. He was in the Dursleys' kitchen, watching Uncle Vernon's fist connect with his face. The blow sent him sprawling, and Aunt Petunia's sharp voice cut through the air, demanding to know what he'd done this time. You've never felt safe, the voice said. Not a single day of your life. You've never known what it means to be loved unconditionally, without expectations, without fear. Harry clenched his fists. That's not true. Dumbledore loves me. The Weasleys love me. They don't expect anything from me. They expect you to save them, the voice said. To fix everything. To carry the weight of the magical world on your shoulders. Is that love, Harry? Or is it another form of expectation? The words hit Harry like a physical blow. He wanted to deny them, to argue, but the truth of them resonated deep within him. He had been fighting for so long, carrying so much, that he'd forgotten what it felt like to be just a child. They love me, he insisted. I know they do. The question is not whether they love you, the voice said. It is whether you believe it. Whether you can truly accept that you are worthy of being loved. The scene shifted again, and Harry was in his tower room at Hogwarts. Dumbledore was there, his face kind, his eyes twinkling. The Weasleys were there too, their voices warm, their laughter filling the room. And Harry was smiling, truly smiling, for the first time in his life. This is what you want, the voice said. A family. A home. People who love you not for what you can do for them, but simply for who you are. I have that, Harry said, his voice choked with emotion. They're my family now. Yet you still push them away. The voice said. You still hold them at arm's length. You've never allowed yourself to fully trust. Because in your heart, you still believe that they'll leave you. That you'll be alone again. Harry felt tears prick at his eyes. That's not true. I trust them. Do you? The voice was soft, almost gentle. Or do you just want to believe that you do? The scene dissolved, and Harry was back in the stone circle. He was breathing hard, his hands shaking, his heart pounding in his chest. The test of the past is complete, the voice said. You have confronted your deepest fears. You have acknowledged the wounds that have shaped you. But you have not yet healed them. What do I have to do? Harry asked. What do I have to do to heal? Forgive yourself, the voice said. Forgive the child in the cupboard who believed he was worthless. He did the best he could with what he had. He survived. And survival, Harry Potter, is its own form of courage. Harry felt a weight lift from his shoulders, a burden he hadn't realized he'd been carrying. The tears he'd been holding back spilled down his cheeks, and he let them fall. I forgive him, he whispered. I forgive myself. The runes beneath his feet flared with a warm golden light, and Harry felt a sense of peace settle over him. He had passed the first test. The test of the present was the second to come. The stone circle shifted again, and Harry found himself standing in the ministry's atrium. But it wasn't the ministry he knew. The golden statue was still intact, its arrogant face gazing down at him. The flames of the fireplaces burned bright, casting dancing shadows across the marble floor. And everywhere Harry looked, he saw corruption. Ministry officials were taking bribes, their hands out for gold. Aurors were beating prisoners, their faces twisted with cruel glee. House elves were being kicked and cursed, their small bodies crumpling under the weight of their master's cruelty. This is the ministry as it was, the voice said. This is what you're trying to change. But look closer, Harry. Look at the people doing these terrible things. Harry looked, and what he saw made his blood run cold. The officials taking bribes were people he knew. People he trusted. Arthur Weasley, his hands filled with gold, his eyes gleaming with greed. Amelia Bones, her face cold and cruel as she ordered an Auror to strike a prisoner. Even Dumbledore, his kindly face twisted into a mask of indifference. No, Harry whispered. This isn't real. This is a test, a trick. They're not like this. They are, the voice said. They've always been like this. You just never saw it because you needed them to be good. You needed to believe that the people who loved you were worthy of that love. That's not true, Harry said, his voice shaking. They're good people. They're fighting for justice. They're fighting for power, the voice corrected. They're using you, Harry. They've always been using you. Dumbledore raised you like a weapon to be aimed at his enemies. The Weasleys supported you because you gave them access to influence they'd never had before. Amelia Bones used your reforms to advance her own career. No. The word tore from Harry's throat. That's a lie. Everything you've shown me is a lie. Is it? The voice was cold, almost mocking. Look again, Harry. Really look. The scene shifted, and Harry saw himself. He was sitting in Dumbledore's office, the headmaster's hand on his shoulder. But the expression on Dumbledore's face was not one of kindness. It was one of calculation, of cold assessment. "You've done well, Harry," Dumbledore was saying. "Better than I expected. The ministry is ours now. The old families are broken. The Dark Lord's followers are in hiding. Soon, there will be no one left to oppose us." "Ours?" Harry's echo asked. "I thought. You thought I was doing this for you?" Dumbledore laughed, a sound that was utterly unlike the warm chuckle Harry knew. "Oh, my boy. You're just a tool. A tool that needed to be honed, sharpened, aimed. Your claim to the ministry was the perfect weapon. And I wielded it perfectly." The scene dissolved, and Harry was back in the stone circle, his body shaking with a mixture of rage and grief. "The test of the present is complete," the voice said. "You have seen the truth of those around you. But the question is, what will you do with that truth?" Harry looked at the ancient ones, at the glowing runes beneath his feet. "I don't believe it," he said, his voice firm despite the tears streaming down his face. "I don't believe they were using me. Dumbledore has his faults, but he's a good man. He's always tried to do the right thing. And the Weasleys, they're not perfect, but they love me. They really love me." "And if you're wrong?" the voice asked. "If the truth is that you've been used, manipulated, lied to? Then I'll deal with that when it comes," Harry said. "But I won't let fear of betrayal stop me from trusting. I won't let the possibility of being hurt prevent me from loving. Because that's what the Dursleys did to me. They made me afraid to trust, afraid to hope. And I'm done being afraid." The runes flared again, brighter this time, and Harry felt the weight of the Ancient One's approval. "The test of the present is past," the voice said. "You have chosen trust over fear. Love over suspicion. It is a wise choice, Harry Potter. A brave one." Harry felt a surge of relief, but he knew the hardest test was still to come. The test of the future was the third and final test. The stone circle dissolved into a mist that swirled around Harry, thick and disorienting. When it cleared, he found himself standing in a place he'd never seen before. It was a city, vast and sprawling, its buildings made of gleaming white stone that seemed to glow with their own inner light. The streets were filled with people, witches and wizards, goblins and house elves, creatures of every kind. All living together in harmony. There was no poverty, no oppression, no fear. Every face was happy, every voice was raised in song. "This is the future," the voice said. "This is what your reforms will create if you continue on your current path. A world of peace, of justice, of unity." Harry felt a surge of hope. "It's beautiful. Everything I've been fighting for, it's all here." "It is," the voice agreed. "But look closer, Harry. Look at who is not here." Harry looked, and his heart stopped. In the center of the city, surrounded by adoring crowds, stood a statue. It was a statue of him, Harry Potter, the boy who ruled Britain. But the face on the statue was not his face. It was older, crueler, its expression one of cold arrogance. And everywhere Harry looked, he saw his face. On the coins that the people used to buy their goods. On the flags that flew from every building. On the banners that proclaimed him Lord of Wizarding Britain. "This is not peace," the voice said. "This is tyranny. The people are happy because they have been told to be happy. They are united because they have no choice. And you, Harry Potter, have become exactly what you swore to destroy." "No," Harry whispered. "I would never do that. I'm not a tyrant. I'm not like them." "Are you sure?" the voice asked. "You have already begun to concentrate power in your own hands. You have purged your enemies. You have surrounded yourself with loyalists. You have begun to believe that you alone know what is best for the magical world." The scene shifted, and Harry saw himself as a grown man, his face lined with age, his eyes cold and hard. He was sitting in a throne room, surrounded by advisors who trembled at his every word. In the corner, a house elf cowered, its eyes filled with fear. "Take it away," the King Harry ordered. I don't want to look at it. But my lord, an advisor said, his voice shaking. It's just an elf. It hasn't done anything wrong. I said take it away, the King Harry repeated. I am the Lord of Wizarding Britain. I don't need to explain myself to anyone. Harry watched in horror as the house elf was dragged away, its cries for mercy echoing through the throne room. Stop, Harry said. Make it stop. I'm not like that. I would never be like that. Wouldn't you? The voice asked. Power changes people, Harry. It corrupts them. The more power you have, the more you will want. And the more you will do to keep it. I won't let it, Harry said, his voice fierce. I'll stay true to myself. I'll remember where I came from. I'll never forget what it's like to be powerless. Words are easy, the voice said. Actions are harder. The Dursleys had power over you, and they used it cruelly. What will you do when you have power over everyone else? Harry thought about that. He thought about Malfoy, stripped of his wealth and influence. He thought about Umbridge, thrown out of the Ministry in disgrace. He thought about all the people he had defeated, humiliated, destroyed. I'll use my power to help, he said. I'll use it to protect the weak, to lift up the oppressed. I won't become my enemies. And if that's not enough, the voice asked. If power, once tasted, consumes you despite your best intentions. Harry was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he spoke. Then I'll give it up. I'll step down. I'll let someone else take my place. Because the ministry doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the people. And the moment I start to believe otherwise, I need to leave. The runes beneath his feet flared with brilliant light, and Harry felt the Ancient One's approval wash over him like a wave. The test of the future is complete, the voice said. You have seen the danger of power and chosen humility. You have understood the weight of your responsibility and accepted it. The tribunal recognizes your wisdom, Harry Potter. The mist dissolved, and Harry was back in the stone circle. The runes beneath his feet were glowing with a steady golden light, warm and reassuring. The shadowy figures in the tiered seats were rising, their forms becoming more distinct. Harry could see them now, the spirits of the Peveril ancestors, their faces ancient and wise, their eyes filled with approval. The tribunal has reached its decision, the voice said. Harry James Potter, last surviving heir of the ancient and noble house of Peveril, has proven himself worthy of the covenant. He has confronted his past, accepted his present, and prepared for his future. He has shown courage, wisdom, and humility. He is recognized as the rightful owner of the Ministry of Magic. Harry felt a surge of emotion that was too complex to name. Relief, joy, exhaustion, and something else, a profound sense of rightness, as if everything in his life had been leading to this moment. The runes beneath his feet flared one last time, and Harry felt the covenant settle over him like a cloak of ancient magic. It was warm and heavy, powerful and protective. He could feel the ministry, feel its wards, its secrets, its people. It was his now. Truly his. The covenant is sealed, the voice said. The ministry belongs to you, Harry Potter. Use it well. Use it wisely. And never forget the lesson you have learned today, power is not an end in itself. It is a tool. A responsibility. A burden. Harry nodded, his voice thick with emotion. I understand. I'll never forget. The spirits of the Peveril ancestors faded into the shadows, and Harry was alone in the stone circle. He stood there for a long moment, his heart pounding, his hands shaking. And then Vol was there, his ancient face creased with something that might have been a smile. You did it, Harry. You passed the trial. The covenant is yours. Harry looked down at the ring on his finger. The emerald was pulsing with a steady, warm light, and he could feel the power of the covenant flowing through him. I did it, he said, his voice barely a whisper. I really did it. The journey back to the surface felt different. Harry walked through the winding tunnels of Gringotts, the weight of the covenant heavy on his shoulders. But it was not a burden. It was a mantle, a symbol of everything he had achieved and everything he still had to do. When he emerged into the marble halls of the bank, he was met by a crowd of well-wishers. Dumbledore was there, his eyes twinkling with pride. The Weasleys were there, their faces bright with joy. Amelia Bones was there, her expression one of grudging respect. "You've done it, Harry," Arthur Weasley said, clapping him on the shoulder. "You've actually done it. The Covenant is yours. The Ministry is yours. You're the most powerful person in magical Britain." Harry smiled, but there was a shadow in his eyes. "I'm not powerful," he said. "I'm just a boy who was given a responsibility. And I'm going to do my best to live up to it." Dumbledore stepped forward, his expression serious. "The people of magical Britain will celebrate this day, Harry. But they will also hold you to account. They will watch you, judge you, expect perfection. Are you ready for that?" Harry met the old man's gaze. "I'm ready. I've always been ready. Because I know that I'm not alone. I have allies. I have friends. I have people who believe in me. And as long as I have that, I can do anything." The crowd cheered, their voices echoing through the marble halls. Harry stood in the midst of them, the ring on his finger pulsing with warm, steady light, and he felt a sense of peace settle over him. He had passed the trial. He had claimed the Covenant. And now, the real work could begin. The next day, Harry announced the creation of the People's Council. It was a radical departure from the old order. The People's Council would be composed of representatives from every community in magical Britain: goblins, house elves, werewolves, centaurs, and humans. It would have the power to propose laws, to oversee the ministry's activities, to hold the government accountable. The old ministry was a tyranny, Harry said, addressing the crowd that had gathered in the atrium. It served the interests of the powerful few. The new ministry will serve the interests of everyone. The People's Council will ensure that no one is left behind. The announcement was met with thunderous applause. But Harry knew that the road ahead would not be easy. The old families were still plotting. The Dark Lord's followers were still out there. And the challenge of governing was only just beginning. "I'm ready," he whispered to himself. "I'm ready for whatever comes." The first meeting of the People's Council was held in the Wizengamot chamber. Harry sat at the head of the table, surrounded by representatives from every magical community. There was Griphook, representing the goblins. There was a house elf named Winky, representing the house elves. There was a werewolf named Remus Lupin, his face scarred but his eyes kind. There were centaurs, hags, and even a vampire. "Welcome," Harry said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "This is a historic moment. For the first time in centuries, every magical being has a seat at the table. This is the beginning of a new era." Griphook nodded slowly. "It is a good start, Harry. But there is much work to be done. The old laws must be reviewed, amended, or repealed. The new laws must be written. And the ministry's resources must be redirected to serve the needs of the people." "I know," Harry said. "That's why we're here. To do the work. Together." The meeting continued for hours, the representatives debating and discussing the shape of the new ministry. It was messy, chaotic, and sometimes frustrating. But Harry loved every moment of it. This was what he'd been fighting for. A government that truly served the people. At the end of the meeting, Lupin approached him. "You've done something remarkable, Harry. You've given hope to people who've had none for generations. I can't thank you enough." Harry smiled. "I didn't do it alone. I had help. And I'm going to need more help in the days ahead. I'm going to need allies who will stand with me, no matter what." Lupin's eyes softened. "You have that, Harry. You have all of us." The days that followed were a blur of activity. Harry worked tirelessly, meeting with the members of the People's Council, reviewing legislation, overseeing the restructuring of the ministry. He was exhausted, but he was also exhilarated. Every day brought new challenges, new opportunities, new victories. He also found time to train. The ancient tribunal had taught him a great deal about himself, but it had also shown him how much he still had to learn. He worked with the aurors, studying combat spells and defensive techniques. He worked with the unspeakables, learning the secrets of the Department of Mysteries. He worked with the goblins, understanding the intricacies of magical finance. "I'm going to be the best leader I can be," he told Dumbledore. "I'm going to earn the trust that people have placed in me." Dumbledore smiled. "I have no doubt of that, Harry. You are already a better leader than most adults I've known." Harry flushed with pleasure. "I'm just trying to do what's right." "And that," Dumbledore said, "is what makes you great." But not everything was going smoothly. The old families were still scheming, their power diminished but not destroyed. There were whispers of a new alliance, of a plot to assassinate Harry and seize control of the ministry. The aurors were working tirelessly to uncover the conspiracy, but the plotters were careful, their networks buried deep. "We're getting close," Amelia Bones told Harry one evening. "We've identified several of the conspirators. But they're well connected, and they have powerful friends. We need to move carefully." Harry nodded, his expression grim. "I know. But we can't wait too long. Every day we delay gives them more time to plan, to attack." Bones's face was troubled. "I know. I'm doing everything I can, Harry. But they're clever. And they're desperate. Desperate people do desperate things." Harry felt a chill run down his spine. "I understand. Do what you have to do. And stay safe." The attack came on a moonless night, when the wards of Hogwarts were at their weakest. Harry was asleep in his tower room when he was suddenly woken by the sound of breaking glass. He was on his feet in an instant, his wand in his hand, his heart pounding. The window was shattered, and a group of masked figures was pouring through. They were Death Eaters, their robes black, their faces hidden. And at their head was a figure Harry recognized. "Malfoy," Harry said, his voice cold. "I should have known you'd try something like this." Lucius Malfoy threw back his hood, his face twisted with hatred. "You thought you destroyed us, Potter. But you were wrong. The old families will never accept a child as their ruler. We will fight you until our last breath." Harry raised his wand. "Then let's fight." The battle was intense, spells flying through the tower room, shattering furniture and scorching the walls. Harry was outnumbered, but he was determined. He'd faced worse odds. He'd faced the Dursleys, the Tribunal, the Wizengamot. He wouldn't let Malfoy and his followers destroy everything he'd built. "Expelliarmus!" Harry shouted, and Malfoy's wand flew out of his hand. "Stupefy!" another Death Eater shouted, and Harry barely dodged the jet of red light. "Protego!" Harry yelled, and a shield of silver light erupted around him, deflecting the spells that flew at him from all directions. He fought with everything he had, his spells precise, his movements fluid. He was no longer the frightened child who had stumbled into Diagon Alley. He was a warrior, a leader, a fighter for justice. One by one, the Death Eaters fell. Harry took them down with a combination of skill and determination, his spells finding their marks with deadly accuracy. And then, finally, he was face to face with Malfoy. "You lose," Harry said, his voice cold. "You've always lost. And you always will." Malfoy's face contorted with rage. "You think you've won, Potter? You think this is over? The Dark Lord is coming back. He'll destroy you. He'll destroy everything you've built." Harry felt a chill run down his spine, but he didn't show it. "Let him come. I'm ready for him. I've been ready for him my whole life." He raised his wand, and Malfoy fell to the floor, unconscious. The aftermath of the attack was devastating. The tower room was destroyed, the walls blackened, the furniture reduced to splinters. Harry was standing in the midst of the chaos, his body shaking, his heart pounding. But he was alive. And he had won. "Are you all right?" Dumbledore asked, appearing in the doorway. His face was pale, his eyes wide with concern. "I'm fine," Harry said. "Malfoy and his followers tried to kill me. They failed. Dumbledore's expression was grim. They'll try again. They'll never stop trying. I know, Harry said. But I won't let them stop me. I won't let anyone stop me. He looked down at the ring on his finger, the emerald pulsing with steady light. He thought of his parents, who had died for a better world. He thought of the goblins, who had preserved the covenant for centuries. He thought of the people of magical Britain, who were counting on him. I'm the heir of Peveril, he said. The owner of the ministry. And I'm going to keep fighting. For all of them. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Harry met with the People's Council, reviewing the security measures that would protect the ministry from future attacks. He met with the Aurors, debriefing them on the battle and discussing ways to improve their defenses. He met with the families of the fallen, offering them comfort and reassurance. But through it all, he never lost sight of what mattered most. The reforms. The rebuilding. The healing. This is what we're fighting for, he told the People's Council. A better future. A future where no one has to live in fear. A future where justice is not a tool of the powerful, but a shield for the vulnerable. The members of the council nodded, their faces filled with determination. They had seen the worst of what the magical world could be. And they were ready to fight for something better. The weeks passed, and Harry's vision began to take shape. The new ministry was a model of transparency and accountability. The old laws were being repealed, replaced by new ones that protected the rights of all magical beings. The resources of the ministry were being redirected to serve the needs of the people, not the interests of the powerful few. And at the center of it all was Harry Potter, the boy who ruled Britain. But he was not the tyrant the old families had feared. He was not the power-hungry despot they'd imagined. He was a boy who had been given a responsibility and was determined to live up to it. I'm not doing this for power, he told the People's Council. I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do. Because the magical world deserves better. Because we can build something truly great. And as he looked around the table, at the representatives of every magical community in Britain, Harry felt a sense of hope that he'd never thought possible. They were building a new world. A world of justice, of unity, of peace. And he was going to lead them into it. End of Chapter 4. Chapter 5, The Boy Who Ruled Britain. The first light of dawn crept through the shattered windows of the ministry's atrium, painting the marble floors in shades of rose and gold. Harry stood at the center of the destruction, his robes still singed from the battle, his face streaked with soot and exhaustion. The golden statue that had once dominated the space lay in pieces around him, its arrogant face cracked and broken. The fireplaces were cold, their flames extinguished by the fighting. The windows were blown out, letting in the chill morning air. But Harry wasn't looking at the destruction. He was looking at the people. Witches and wizards were emerging from the shadows, their faces pale, their eyes wide with shock. Aurors were tending to the wounded, their movements quick and efficient. House elves were scurrying through the debris, their small hands gathering scattered papers and broken objects. And everywhere Harry looked, he saw hope. They had survived. They had fought back. And they had won. We did it, Harry said, his voice barely above a whisper. We actually did it. Arthur Weasley appeared at his side, his robes torn, his face bruised but his eyes shining. You did it, Harry. You led us. You gave us hope. And now, we're going to rebuild. Harry nodded, a lump forming in his throat. Together, he said. We're going to rebuild together. The weeks that followed were the most challenging of Harry's life. He worked from dawn until well past midnight, his days filled with meetings, decisions, and endless paperwork. The ministry was in ruins, its infrastructure shattered, its personnel demoralized. But Harry refused to let the chaos overwhelm him. One step at a time, he told his advisors. We'll fix one thing, then the next, then the next. Before we know it, the ministry will be stronger than ever. The first priority was security. The attack had exposed gaping holes in the ministry's defenses, weaknesses that had been exploited by the Death Eaters with devastating effectiveness. Harry worked with the Aurors to strengthen the wards, to create new protocols for emergencies, to ensure that such a breach could never happen again. The wards are the strongest they've ever been, Mad-Eye Moody reported, his magical eye spinning wildly in its socket. It would take an army to break through now. And if they try, they'll regret it. Harry nodded, his expression grim. Good. But I don't want to rely solely on wards. We need people we can trust. People who will stand with us no matter what. Moody's scarred face twisted into something that might have been a smile. You've got that, Potter. You've got the best fighters in Britain on your side. And they're all loyal to you. Harry felt a surge of warmth. Thank you, Mad-Eye. That means more than you know. The second priority was the People's Council. Harry had envisioned the council as the heart of the new ministry, a body that would ensure the government served the needs of all magical beings. But bringing that vision to life was proving to be more difficult than he'd anticipated. Representatives from every magical community, Griphook said, his voice carrying a note of skepticism. It's a noble idea, Harry. But the practicalities are daunting. How do we ensure fair representation? How do we resolve conflicts between communities with competing interests? Harry leaned forward, his eyes blazing with determination. We find a way. We listen to each other. We compromise. We work together. Because if we don't, the old families win. The Death Eaters win. Everything we've fought for will be lost. Griphook was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. You're right. The alternative is unacceptable. I'll work with the other representatives to draft a charter for the council. We'll make it work. Harry smiled, the first genuine smile he'd felt in days. Thank you, Griphook. I knew I could count on you. The third priority was the rebuilding. The ministry's physical infrastructure had been devastated by the attack. The atrium was a ruin, its marble columns cracked, its floors pitted with scorch marks. The departments were in disarray, their offices destroyed, their records scattered. The flue network was down, the fireplaces cold and dark. But Harry refused to be daunted. He worked with the Department of Magical Maintenance to restore the building, using a combination of spells and sheer determination. He worked with the Department of Mysteries to recreate the records that had been lost. He worked with the goblins to secure the ministry's financial resources. We're making progress, he told his team, his voice filled with quiet pride. It's slow, but it's happening. The ministry is coming back to life. But even as Harry celebrated his victories, the opposition was regrouping. The old families, humiliated and stripped of their power, had not given up. They had gone underground, forming secret alliances, plotting their revenge. And they had found a new leader, a figure who embodied their hatred and their desperation. Bellatrix Lestrange. She was a ghost from the past, a Death Eater who had been imprisoned in Azkaban after the fall of the Dark Lord. But she had escaped during the chaos of the attack, and now she was the figurehead of the resistance against Harry's reforms. She's dangerous, Amelia Bones warned Harry. She's more than just a fanatic. She's a strategist. A leader. And she's got the old families rallying behind her. Harry's jaw tightened. Then we find her. We stop her. We can't let her destroy everything we've built. Bones nodded grimly. We're working on it. But she's careful. She's been hiding for months, planning her next move. We don't know where she is, or what she's planning. Harry felt a chill run down his spine. Then we have to be ready. We have to be prepared for anything. The attack came 3 weeks later, on a day that Harry would never forget. He was in the ministry's new atrium, overseeing the final stages of the reconstruction, when the first explosion shook the building. The walls trembled, the floors buckled, and a cloud of dust and debris filled the air. Harry was on his feet in an instant, his wand in his hand. What was that? Explosion in the Department of Mysteries, an Auror shouted, his face pale. They're under attack. It's Bellatrix Lestrange. Harry's heart raced. The Department of Mysteries. The most secretive and dangerous department in the ministry. If Bellatrix gained access to their secrets, she could destroy everything. I'm going, Harry said. Stay here. Protect the people. He ran through the chaos, his robes billowing behind him. The corridors were filled with smoke and debris, the walls blackened by the explosions. Harry could hear the sounds of battle ahead, spells flying, people screaming. When he reached the Department of Mysteries, the scene was one of utter devastation. The circular room was in ruins, its walls shattered, its doors blown off their hinges. In the center of the chaos, Bellatrix Lestrange stood, her wand raised, her face twisted with glee. Potter, she said, her voice a cruel purr. I was wondering when you'd show up. Harry raised his wand, his heart pounding. It's over, Bellatrix. You've lost. There's nowhere to run. Bellatrix laughed, a sound that echoed through the ruined room. Oh, Potter. You think you've won? You think a few reforms and a pretty speech will change anything? The Dark Lord is coming back. And when he does, everything you've built will burn. The Dark Lord is dead, Harry said, his voice cold. And you're going to join him. The battle was fierce, spells flying between them with deadly precision. Harry was younger, less experienced, but he was faster and more determined. He dodged Bellatrix's curses, his own spells flying with increasing accuracy. You can't win, Potter, Bellatrix hissed. You're just a child. A pathetic, worthless child who got lucky. Harry didn't respond. He didn't need to. His spells were doing the talking, gradually wearing down Bellatrix's defenses. Finally, with a cry of rage, her wand flew out of her hand and clattered to the floor. It's over, Harry said, his voice steady. You've lost. Bellatrix's face contorted with fury. It's never over, Potter. The Dark Lord will return. And when he does, he'll destroy you. He'll destroy everyone you love. Harry's jaw tightened. Maybe he will. But not today. And not because of you. He raised his wand, and Bellatrix fell to the floor, unconscious. The aftermath of the battle was a blur. Harry stood in the ruins of the Department of Mysteries, his body aching, his heart pounding. The room was silent now, the fighting over. The Aurors were securing the scene, their faces grim. The unspeakables were emerging from the shadows, their expressions unreadable. You did it, Harry, Arthur Weasley said, appearing at his side. You stopped her. You saved the Department of Mysteries. Harry nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. Bellatrix's words echoed in his head, a dark warning. The Dark Lord is coming back. Everything you've built will burn. I need to see Dumbledore, Harry said. There's something I need to ask him. The headmaster's office was dark, the fire in the hearth reduced to dying embers. Dumbledore was sitting behind his desk, his face pale, his eyes weary. You did well, Harry, he said. Bellatrix Lestrange is in Azkaban. The Ministry is safe. For now, Harry said. But she wasn't lying, was she? The Dark Lord is coming back. Dumbledore was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. I believe he is. The signs are there. Strange occurrences, dark omens. His followers are growing bolder, more confident. And there have been reports of his presence in the shadows. Harry felt a chill run down his spine. What can we do? How can we stop him? Dumbledore's eyes met his, ancient and wise. There is a prophecy, Harry. A prophecy that speaks of you. It says that the Dark Lord will be defeated by one who has been marked by him as his equal. One who possesses powers he does not understand. Harry's heart raced. Me? I'm the one in the prophecy. I believe so, Dumbledore said. The night your parents died, Voldemort marked you as his equal. He gave you a scar, a connection to his own soul. And that connection, Harry, may be the key to his defeat. Harry felt the weight of those words settle over him. He was not just the heir of Peveril. He was the one destined to defeat the Dark Lord. What do I have to do? He asked. What do I have to do to stop him? Dumbledore leaned forward, his expression serious. You have to be ready, Harry. You have to train, to learn, to prepare. And when the time comes, you have to face him. Alone. Harry nodded slowly. I'll do it. I'll do whatever it takes. The weeks that followed were a blur of training and preparation. Harry worked with Dumbledore, learning spells and techniques that would give him an edge against the Dark Lord. He worked with the Aurors, honing his combat skills. He worked with the Unspeakables, studying the secrets of the Department of Mysteries. But he didn't neglect his responsibilities as the head of the ministry. The reforms continued, the People's Council continued to meet, and the rebuilding continued at a feverish pace. We can't let the threat of the Dark Lord stop us from building a better future, Harry told his team. We have to keep moving forward. We have to show the magical world that we're not afraid. The words were brave, but Harry felt the fear gnawing at him. The Dark Lord was coming, and he would have to face him. Alone. But he wasn't really alone. He had friends. He had allies. He had people who believed in him. I'm ready, he whispered to himself. I'm ready for whatever comes. The months passed, and Harry's vision of a better magical world began to take shape. The People's Council was fully operational, its members working together to create laws that served the needs of all magical beings. The ministry was rebuilt, its defenses stronger than ever. The economy was recovering, the streets were safe, and the people were hopeful. I can't believe we've come this far, Arthur Weasley said, standing beside Harry in the new atrium. When I think back to where we started, to that first meeting in the Leaky Cauldron, it seems like a dream. Harry smiled. It's not a dream. It's real. And it's only the beginning. There's still so much to do. Arthur nodded, his eyes shining. I know. But we'll do it. Together. But even as Harry celebrated his victories, the shadow of the Dark Lord grew darker. Reports of Voldemort's activities were increasing. His followers were bolder, more aggressive. Dark creatures were stirring in the shadows. And there were whispers of a new alliance, a coalition of dark forces that threatened to destroy everything Harry had built. We have to act, Harry told Dumbledore. We can't wait for him to attack. We have to take the fight to him. Dumbledore shook his head. That's not how it works, Harry. Voldemort is powerful, more powerful than you can imagine. You can't defeat him by attacking blindly. You have to be patient. You have to wait for the right moment. Harry felt a surge of frustration. But what if the right moment never comes? What if he attacks before we're ready? Dumbledore's eyes met his, ancient and wise. Then we will be ready. You will be ready. I have faith in you, Harry. I always have. The attack came on a cold winter's night, when the moon was hidden behind clouds and the world was wrapped in darkness. Harry was in his tower room at Hogwarts, studying the latest intelligence reports, when the wards flared with warning. He was on his feet in an instant, his wand in his hand, his heart pounding. Death Eaters, he said. They're coming. He ran through the castle, his robes billowing behind him. The halls were filled with chaos, students and teachers running in all directions. The battle had begun. Harry reached the courtyard just in time to see Voldemort himself descend from the sky, his robes black, his face pale and serpentine. The Dark Lord's eyes were red and gleaming, his wand raised. Harry Potter, Voldemort said, his voice a cold hiss. At last we meet. Harry raised his wand, his heart pounding but his voice steady. It's over. Voldemort. You've lost. Everything you've built is gone. You're alone. Voldemort laughed, a sound that echoed through the night. Alone? I have never been alone. I have followers, loyal followers who would die for me. While you, Harry Potter, have nothing. No family. No friends. No future. Harry felt a surge of anger, but he forced himself to stay calm. You're wrong. I have everything. I have people who love me. I have people who believe in me. And I have the strength to defeat you. The battle was fierce, spells flying between them with deadly precision. Harry was younger, less experienced, but he was faster and more determined. He dodged Voldemort's curses, his own spells flying with increasing accuracy. "You can't win, Potter," Voldemort hissed. "You're just a child. A pathetic, worthless child who got lucky." Harry didn't respond. He didn't need to. His spells were doing the talking, gradually wearing down Voldemort's defenses. Finally, with a cry of rage, Voldemort's wand flew out of his hand and clattered to the floor. "It's over," Harry said, his voice steady. "You've lost." Voldemort's face contorted with fury. "It's never over, Potter. The Dark Lord will never die. I will return, again and again, until I have destroyed everything you love." Harry's jaw tightened. "Maybe you will. But not today. And not because of me." He raised his wand, and Voldemort fell to the floor, unconscious. The aftermath of the battle was a blur. Harry stood in the courtyard, his body aching, his heart pounding. The fighting was over, the Death Eaters defeated. The courtyard was littered with bodies, both friend and foe. "You did it, Harry," Dumbledore said, appearing at his side. "You defeated him. You saved the magical world." Harry nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. Voldemort's words echoed in his head, a dark warning. "I will return, again and again, until I have destroyed everything you love." "I didn't defeat him," Harry said. "I just delayed him. He'll be back. He'll never stop coming back." Dumbledore's eyes met his, ancient and wise. "That may be true. But you've bought us time. Time to prepare, time to strengthen our defenses, time to build a better future. And that, Harry, is the most important victory of all." Harry felt a sense of peace settle over him. Dumbledore was right. The battle was won. The future was bright. And he was ready to face whatever came next. The months that followed were a time of healing and renewal. Harry continued his reforms, working tirelessly to build a better magical world. The People's Council was flourishing, its members working together to create laws that served the needs of all magical beings. The Ministry was stronger than ever, its defenses impenetrable, its personnel loyal and dedicated. And Harry, for the first time in his life, was happy. He had found a family in the Weasleys. He had found mentors in Dumbledore and the other members of the Order of the Phoenix. He had found purpose in his work, his reforms, his vision for a better future. "I never thought I'd have this," he told Dumbledore one evening, as they sat in the headmaster's office watching the stars will overhead. "A home. A family. People who love me. I never thought I'd have any of it." Dumbledore smiled. "You deserve it, Harry. You've earned it. Through courage, through determination, through your unwavering commitment to justice. You've earned every bit of happiness you've found." Harry felt tears prick at his eyes. "Thank you, Professor. For everything. For believing in me. For giving me a chance." Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. "It was my honor, Harry. It was my honor." But the world was not yet safe. Voldemort's followers were still out there, plotting their revenge. The old families were still scheming, their power diminished but not destroyed. And there were new threats emerging, new challenges that Harry would have to face. "I'm ready," Harry whispered to himself. "I'm ready for whatever comes." He looked down at the ring on his finger, the emerald pulsing with steady light. He thought of his parents, who had died for a better world. He thought of the goblins, who had preserved the Covenant for centuries. He thought of the people of magical Britain, who were counting on him. "I won't let you down," he said. "I promise." The next morning, Harry announced the creation of the Peveril Foundation. The foundation was a charitable organization dedicated to promoting justice, equality, and unity in the magical world. It would provide funding for education, for healthcare, for social programs. It would support the victims of discrimination, the oppressed, the marginalized. It would be a beacon of hope in a world that had known too much darkness. "The Peveril Foundation is my gift to the magical world," Harry said, his voice ringing through the atrium. "It is my promise that the work of the Covenant will continue. That the ministry will always serve the people. That justice will never be sacrificed for power. The applause was thunderous, echoing through the marble halls. Harry stood in the midst of it, his heart full of hope. He had come so far, from the cupboard under the stairs to the halls of power. He had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious. He had built something new, something beautiful, something that would last for generations. And he was just getting started. The months passed, and Harry's vision continued to unfold. The People's Council was meeting regularly, its members working together to create laws that served the needs of all magical beings. The ministry was running smoothly, its departments functioning efficiently. The economy was strong, the streets were safe, and the people were happy. But Harry didn't rest. He knew that the work was never truly done. There were always new challenges, new threats, new opportunities to make things better. One step at a time, he told his advisors. We'll fix one thing, then the next, then the next. Before we know it, the magical world will be everything it was meant to be. The words were brave, but Harry felt the weight of the responsibility pressing down on him. He was the boy who ruled Britain. The heir of Peveril. The owner of the ministry. The one person who could make a difference. I won't let you down, he whispered to himself. I promise. The anniversary of the covenant was a day of celebration. Harry stood in the atrium, surrounded by friends and allies, his heart full of hope. The ministry was shining, its marble walls gleaming, its golden statue replaced by a symbol of unity and justice. The People's Council was assembled, its members proud and determined. The people of magical Britain were gathered, their faces filled with hope. We've come so far, Harry said, his voice echoing through the hall. When I first discovered the covenant, I was just a child. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know if I could succeed. But I had hope. I had courage. And I had people who believed in me. He paused, his gaze sweeping across the assembled crowd. Today, I'm not just the heir of Peveril. I'm not just the owner of the ministry. I'm a symbol of what we can achieve when we work together. When we believe in something greater than ourselves. When we refuse to give up, no matter how dark the world seems. The applause was deafening, echoing through the marble halls. Harry stood in the midst of it, his heart full of hope. He had done it. He had built a better world. And he was going to keep building, keep fighting, keep dreaming. Thank you, he said, his voice barely audible above the din. Thank you all. That night, Harry sat alone in his tower room, looking out at the stars. The ring on his finger pulsed with steady light, a reminder of everything he had achieved. The covenant was his, the ministry was his, and the future was bright. But even as he celebrated, he knew that the work was never truly done. There were always new challenges, new threats, new opportunities to make things better. I'm ready, he whispered to himself. I'm ready for whatever comes. The door opened, and Ron Weasley poked his head in. Harry. Mum's made dinner. She says you have to come down and eat something, or you'll waste away to nothing. Harry smiled, the tension draining out of him. Tell her I'll be right there. Ron grinned. Good. Because she's made treacle tart, and if you don't eat it, I will. Harry laughed, a sound that felt lighter than air. He stood up, stretching his arms over his head. Coming, he said. I'm coming. The dinner was a joyful affair, the Weasleys' laughter filling the Burrows' kitchen. Harry sat at the table, surrounded by the family he'd found, his heart full of warmth. You've done so much, Harry, Molly Weasley said, her eyes shining with tears. We're all so proud of you. Harry felt his cheeks flush. I couldn't have done it without all of you. You believed in me when no one else did. You gave me a home. You gave me a family. Molly wiped her eyes with her apron. You've always been family, Harry. From the first moment you came here. You're one of us. Harry felt a lump form in his throat. Thank you. For everything. The meal continued, the laughter and chatter filling the room. Harry sat in the midst of it, his heart full of hope. He had come so far, from the cupboard under the stairs to the halls of power. He had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious. He had built something new, something beautiful, something that would last for generations. And he was just getting started. Later that night, Harry stood on the balcony of the burrow, looking up at the stars. The ring on his finger pulsed with steady light, a reminder of everything he had achieved. The covenant was his, the ministry was his, and the future was bright. But even as he celebrated, he knew that the work was never truly done. There were always new challenges, new threats, new opportunities to make things better. "I'm ready," he whispered to himself. "I'm ready for whatever comes." The door opened behind him, and Hermione Granger stepped out. She was a new face in his life, a brilliant witch who had been instrumental in the reforms. Her eyes were sharp, her mind even sharper. "Harry," she said, her voice soft. "Can I talk to you?" Harry turned, a smile on his face. "Of course. What's on your mind?" Hermione hesitated, her eyes searching his. "I've been thinking about the future. About what happens next. The ministry is stable, the People's Council is functioning, the reforms are working. But there's still so much to do." Harry nodded slowly. "I know. But we'll do it. Together. One step at a time." Hermione's eyes glistened. "I know. I just wanted to say, thank you. For everything you've done. For giving me hope. For showing me that change is possible." Harry felt a warmth spread through his chest. "I couldn't have done it without you. Without all of you. We did this together." Hermione smiled, a genuine, beautiful smile. "I'm glad I met you, Harry. I'm glad you're my friend." Harry felt tears prick at his eyes, but he blinked them away. "I'm glad too. I'm glad you're my friend." They stood there in the darkness, looking up at the stars, the weight of the world lifting from their shoulders. End of Chapter 5. Chapter 6, The Lord of Wizarding Britain. The morning of Harry's 13th birthday dawned clear and cold, the Scottish mountains wrapped in a blanket of frost that glittered like scattered diamonds in the pale winter light. He stood at the window of his tower room, watching the sun creep over the peaks, and tried to remember the last time he'd felt this peaceful. The ring on his finger pulsed with a steady, warm light, a constant reminder of everything he had achieved. The covenant was his. The ministry was his. And for the first time in his life, the future was bright. But Harry knew that peace was never permanent. It was a gift, something to be treasured while it lasted. And he had learned, through all his trials, that the greatest gift of all was the ability to find happiness in the small moments. "Happy birthday, Harry," a voice said from the doorway. Harry turned to find Hermione Granger standing there, her face bright with a smile. She was holding a small package wrapped in brown paper, tied with a ribbon that shimmered with faint magic. "Thank you," Harry said, crossing the room to take the package. "You didn't have to get me anything." "I wanted to," Hermione said. "Open it." Harry unwrapped the package carefully, revealing a small leather-bound journal. Its cover was embossed with the Peveril crest, the same symbol that adorned his ring. "It's enchanted," Hermione explained. "Whatever you write in it will appear in my copy too. I thought it might be nice to have a way to stay connected, even when we're far apart." Harry felt a lump form in his throat. "It's perfect, Hermione." "Thank you." Hermione's cheeks flushed with pleasure. "I'm glad you like it. Now, come on. Everyone's waiting for you downstairs." The great hall at Hogwarts was filled with people. Harry stood at the entrance, his eyes wide with shock. The hall was decorated with banners bearing the Peveril crest, and the tables were laden with food and gifts. All his friends were there, the Weasleys, Hermione, Neville Longbottom, Luna Lovegood, and dozens of others. Even the goblins had sent representatives, including Griphook and Vol. "Surprise!" the crowd shouted, and Harry felt tears prick at his eyes. "You did all this?" he asked, turning to Ron Weasley, who was grinning from ear to ear. "Couldn't have done it without Hermione," Ron admitted. "She's the one who organized everything. I just ate the cake." Harry laughed, a sound that felt lighter than air. Thank you. All of you. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Molly Weasley said, appearing at his side. Just enjoy your day. You deserve it. The celebration was everything Harry could have hoped for. There was music and dancing, laughter and joy. He ate until he couldn't eat any more, opened gifts until his arms ached, and spent hours talking and laughing with the people he loved. But at the center of it all was a quiet sense of contentment that Harry had never known before. He had friends. He had family. He had a purpose. And for the first time in his life, he felt truly whole. That evening, Harry sat alone on the astronomy tower, looking out at the stars. The ring on his finger pulsed with steady light, and he could feel the covenant humming in his veins. The ministry was his, the magical world was his, and the future was bright. But even as he celebrated, he knew that the work was never truly done. Mind if I join you? A voice asked. Harry turned to find Dumbledore standing in the doorway, his eyes twinkling in the starlight. Of course not, Harry said. Please, sit. Dumbledore settled beside him, his ancient face creased with a smile. It's been quite a journey, hasn't it? From the cupboard under the stairs to the Lord of Wizarding Britain. You've come so far, Harry. Harry nodded slowly. I couldn't have done it without you. Without all of you. You gave me hope when I had none. You gave me a family when I was alone. Dumbledore's eyes glistened. You gave us hope too, Harry. You showed us that change was possible. That the magical world could be better. That justice could triumph over corruption. Harry felt a warmth spread through his chest. Thank you, Professor. For everything. Dumbledore was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he spoke. I have something to tell you, Harry. Something I should have told you long ago. About your parents. About the night they died. Harry's heart raced. What about them? Dumbledore's face was grave. Your parents didn't just die protecting you, Harry. They died protecting the Covenant. They knew about the Peverell legacy. They knew that you were the heir. And they died to keep that secret safe. Harry felt the world tilt around him. They knew. All along, they knew. Dumbledore nodded slowly. They were members of the Order of the Phoenix, as you know. But they were also guardians of the Covenant. They understood the importance of the Peverell legacy, and they were willing to die to protect it. Harry's hands trembled. Why didn't you tell me? All those years, why didn't you tell me? Dumbledore's eyes were filled with regret. I was afraid, Harry. Afraid that the knowledge would be too much for you. Afraid that you would be consumed by the weight of your parents' sacrifice. I wanted to protect you. I wanted to give you a chance to be a child. Harry was silent for a long moment, processing the revelation. His parents had known about the Covenant. They had died to protect it. They had believed in him, even before he knew who he was. I understand, he said finally. I don't like it, but I understand. Dumbledore's face softened. You are a remarkable young man, Harry. Your parents would be so proud of you. Harry felt tears prick at his eyes, but he blinked them away. I hope so. I really hope so. The weeks that followed were a time of reflection and renewal. Harry continued his work with the People's Council, implementing reforms that brought even greater justice and equality to the magical world. He met with the goblins, the house elves, the werewolves, and the centaurs, listening to their concerns and working to address them. He visited the schools, the hospitals, the orphanages, seeing firsthand the impact of his reforms. But he also found time for himself. He spent weekends with the Weasleys, playing Quidditch in the orchard and eating Molly's legendary treacle tart. He studied with Hermione, exploring the depths of magical theory. He trained with Ron, honing his combat skills and preparing for any threat that might arise. I've never been happier, he told Dumbledore one evening, as they sat in the headmaster's office watching the stars will overhead. I never thought I'd have this. A home. A family. A purpose. It's everything I ever wanted. Dumbledore smiled, his eyes twinkling. You deserve it, Harry. You've earned every bit of happiness you've found. Harry felt a warmth spread through his chest. Thank you, Professor. For everything. The announcement of the Great Charter of Unity was the crowning achievement of Harry's reign. It was a document that codified the principles of the new ministry: justice, equality, unity, and hope. It granted full rights to all magical beings, regardless of their species or background. It created new protections for the vulnerable, new opportunities for the oppressed. It was, in every sense of the word, revolutionary. This is the future, Harry said, addressing the crowd that had gathered in the atrium. A future where every magical being has a voice. Where justice is not a tool of the powerful, but a shield for the vulnerable. Where the ministry serves the people, not the interests of the few. The applause was deafening, echoing through the marble halls. Harry stood in the midst of it, his heart full of hope. But even as he celebrated, he knew that the work was never truly done. The Great Charter was just the beginning. There would always be new challenges, new threats, new opportunities to make things better. I'm ready, he whispered to himself. I'm ready for whatever comes. The months passed, and Harry's vision continued to unfold. The People's Council was flourishing, its members working together to create laws that served the needs of all magical beings. The ministry was running smoothly, its departments functioning efficiently. The economy was strong, the streets were safe, and the people were happy. But Harry didn't rest. He knew that the work was never truly done. There were always new challenges, new threats. New opportunities to make things better. One step at a time, he told his advisors. We'll fix one thing, then the next, then the next. Before we know it, the magical world will be everything it was meant to be. The words were brave, but Harry felt the weight of the responsibility pressing down on him. He was the Lord of Wizarding Britain. The heir of Peveril. The owner of the ministry. The one person who could make a difference. I won't let you down, he whispered to himself. I promise. The first annual session of the People's Council was a historic event. Harry sat at the head of the table, surrounded by representatives from every magical community. The mood was one of hope and determination, the members united in their commitment to building a better future. We've accomplished so much in the past year, Harry said, his voice echoing through the chamber. But there's still so much to do. The Great Charter is just the beginning. We need to continue working together, continue fighting for justice, continue building a world where every magical being has a voice. Griphook nodded slowly. The goblins are with you, Harry. We've never had a leader who truly understood us. Who truly valued our contributions. But you do. And we will never forget it. Harry felt a warmth spread through his chest. Thank you, Griphook. Your support means everything to me. The session continued for hours, the representatives debating and discussing the shape of the new ministry. It was messy, chaotic, and sometimes frustrating. But Harry loved every moment of it. This was what he'd been fighting for. A government that truly served the people. The summer of Harry's 14th year was a time of peace and prosperity. The magical world was thriving. The reforms were working. The People's Council was functioning. And Harry, for the first time in his life, was able to relax. He spent his days at the Burrow, playing Quidditch with Ron and the other Weasleys. He spent his evenings at Hogwarts, studying with Hermione and exploring the secrets of the castle. He spent his nights dreaming of a future that was bright and full of hope. I never thought I'd have this, he told Ron one evening, as they sat on the balcony of the Burrow watching the sun set. A home. A family. A future. I never thought I'd have any of it. Ron grinned. You deserve it, mate. You've earned it. Through courage, through determination, through being a complete nutter who doesn't know when to give up. Harry laughed, a sound that felt lighter than air. I guess that's true. But I couldn't have done it without you. Without all of you. Ron's expression grew serious. You know we'll always be here for you, right? Whatever happens. Whatever comes. We're family. And family sticks together. Harry felt a lump form in his throat. I know. And I'll always be here for you too. The winter of Harry's 15th year brought a new challenge. The old families, their power diminished but not destroyed, had regrouped. They had found a new leader, a wizard named Thaddeus Knott, who was even more dangerous than Bellatrix Lestrange. Knott was a strategist, a manipulator, a master of the dark arts. And he had sworn to destroy everything Harry had built. They're planning something, Amelia Bones warned Harry. We don't know what, but it's big. The old families are mobilizing, gathering their forces. We need to be ready. Harry nodded, his expression grim. Then we'll be ready. We'll strengthen our defenses. We'll prepare for anything. And when they attack, we'll be waiting. Bones's face was troubled. They're not going to attack directly, Harry. They're going to use more subtle methods. Political manipulation. Economic sabotage. They're going to try to turn the people against you. Harry felt a chill run down his spine. Then we'll fight them on every front. We'll expose their lies. We'll show the people the truth. We'll do whatever it takes to protect everything we've built. The political battle was fierce. Knott and his allies launched a campaign of misinformation, spreading lies about Harry's reforms and his character. They painted him as a tyrant, a dictator who had seized power through manipulation and deceit. They claimed that the People's Council was a sham, that Harry was ruling through fear, that the magical world was on the brink of destruction. But Harry fought back. He used every tool at his disposal, the press, the wireless, the personal connections he had built, to expose the truth. He showed the people the progress that had been made. He reminded them of the corruption that had existed before. He gave them hope. The old families are afraid, he told a gathering of his supporters. They're afraid of losing their power. They're afraid of the future we're building. But we won't let them stop us. We'll keep fighting. We'll keep building. We'll keep believing. The speech was met with thunderous applause, and Harry felt a surge of hope. The people were with him. The people believed in him. And that belief was the most powerful weapon of all. The economic battle was equally fierce. Knott and his allies used their remaining wealth to destabilize the economy, creating shortages and inflation that hurt the most vulnerable members of the magical community. They hoped to turn the people against Harry, to make them believe that his reforms were to blame. But Harry worked with the goblins to stabilize the economy. He created new programs to help the vulnerable. He opened the ministry's coffers to provide relief to those who were struggling. And slowly, the crisis was averted. We did it, Griphook said, his voice carrying a note of pride. The economy is recovering. The people are supporting you. Knott's plan has failed. Harry nodded, his face weary but determined. We can't afford to relax. He'll try again. He'll keep trying until we stop him for good. Griphook's eyes gleamed. Then we will stop him. Together. The confrontation came on a cold winter's night, when the moon was hidden behind clouds and the world was wrapped in darkness. Harry was in the ministry's new atrium, meeting with his advisors, when the first explosion shook the building. The walls trembled, the floors buckled, and a cloud of dust and debris filled the air. He's here, Harry said, his voice steady. Knott is here. The battle was fierce, the old family's forces pouring through the shattered walls. Harry fought alongside his allies, his spells precise, his movements fluid. He was no longer the frightened child who had stumbled into Diagon Alley. He was a warrior, a leader, a fighter for justice. Knott emerged from the chaos, his face twisted with rage. Potter. You've taken everything from me. My family. My fortune. My future. I'll make you pay. Harry raised his wand, his heart pounding but his voice steady. You've made your own choices, Knott. You chose corruption and greed and hatred. And now you're paying the price. The duel was intense, spells flying between them with deadly precision. Harry was younger, less experienced, but he was faster and more determined. He dodged Not's curses, his own spells flying with increasing accuracy. "You can't win, Potter," Not hissed. "You're nothing but a child. A pathetic, worthless child who got lucky." Harry didn't respond. He didn't need to. His spells were doing the talking, gradually wearing down Not's defenses. Finally, with a cry of rage, Not's wand flew out of his hand and clattered to the floor. "It's over," Harry said, his voice cold. "You've lost." Not's face contorted with fury. "It's never over, Potter. The old families will never stop fighting. The Dark Lord will never stop fighting. And one day, you'll fall. Just like your parents." Harry felt a surge of rage at the mention of his parents, but he forced himself to stay calm. "Maybe I will fall someday. But not today. And not because of you." He raised his wand, and Not fell to the floor, unconscious. The aftermath of the battle was a blur. Harry stood in the ruined atrium, his body aching, his heart pounding. The fighting was over, the old families defeated. The atrium was littered with bodies, both friend and foe. "You did it, Harry," Arthur Weasley said, appearing at his side. "You defeated them. You saved the Ministry." Harry nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. Not's words echoed in his head, a dark warning. "One day, you'll fall. Just like your parents." "I didn't defeat them," Harry said. "I just delayed them. They'll be back. They'll never stop coming back." Arthur's face was grave. "That may be true. But you've bought us time. Time to prepare, time to strengthen our defenses, time to build a better future. And that, Harry, is the most important victory of all." Harry felt a sense of peace settle over him. Arthur was right. The battle was won. The future was bright. And he was ready to face whatever came next. The months that followed were a time of healing and renewal. The Ministry was rebuilt stronger than ever. The People's Council continued its work, creating laws that served the needs of all magical beings. The economy recovered, the streets were safe, and the people were hopeful. And Harry, for the first time in his life, was truly happy. He spent his days working alongside his friends and allies, building a better world. He spent his evenings with the Weasleys, laughing and talking and feeling like he belonged. He spent his nights dreaming of a future that was bright and full of hope. "I never thought I'd have this," he told Hermione one evening, as they sat on the balcony of Hogwarts watching the stars. "A home. A family. A purpose. I never thought I'd have any of it." Hermione smiled, her eyes shining. "You deserve it, Harry. You've earned it. Through courage, through determination, through never giving up." Harry felt tears prick at his eyes, but he blinked them away. "Thank you, Hermione. For everything. For believing in me. For standing by me." Hermione reached out and took his hand. "I'll always be here for you, Harry. No matter what." Harry squeezed her hand. "I know. And I'll always be here for you." The ceremony of the Great Investiture was the crowning moment of Harry's reign. He stood in the center of the new atrium, surrounded by representatives from every magical community. The ring on his finger pulsed with steady light, a symbol of everything he had achieved. The covenant was his, the ministry was his, and the future was bright. "Today," Harry said, his voice echoing through the hall, "we celebrate not just my investiture, but the investiture of a new era. An era of justice, of equality, of unity. An era where every magical being has a voice. Where the ministry serves the people, not the interests of the few." The applause was thunderous, echoing through the marble halls. Harry stood in the midst of it, his heart full of hope. But even as he celebrated, he knew that the work was never truly done. There were always new challenges, new threats, new opportunities to make things better. "I'm ready," he whispered to himself. "I'm ready for whatever comes." The first phase of Harry's reign was complete. The ministry was transformed. The People's Council was functioning. The economy was thriving. The people were happy. And Harry, for the first time in his life, was at peace. But he knew that the future was not guaranteed. The old families were still out there, plotting their revenge. The Dark Lord's followers were still waiting, biding their time. And there were new threats emerging, new challenges that would test everything Harry had built. "I'm ready," he said. "I'm ready for whatever comes." He looked down at the ring on his finger, the emerald pulsing with steady light. He thought of his parents, who had died for a better world. He thought of the goblins, who had preserved the covenant for centuries. He thought of the people of magical Britain, who were counting on him. "I won't let you down," he said. "I promise." The years passed, and Harry's legend grew. He became the youngest and most influential ruler in magical Britain's history. His reforms were studied and celebrated, his leadership praised and admired. The People's Council became a model for governance across the magical world. The Great Charter was adopted by other nations, spreading the principles of justice and equality far beyond Britain. But through it all, Harry remained humble. He never forgot where he came from. He never forgot the people who had helped him along the way. He never forgot that power was a responsibility, not a privilege. "I'm just a boy who was given a chance," he told a gathering of young wizards. "A chance to make a difference. A chance to build a better world. And I took it." The applause was thunderous, and Harry smiled. He had come so far, from the cupboard under the stairs to the halls of power. He had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious. He had built something new, something beautiful, something that would last for generations. And he was just getting started. The final scene of Harry's story took place on a warm summer evening, the sun setting over the Scottish mountains in a blaze of gold and crimson. He stood on the balcony of the astronomy tower, looking out at the world he had changed. The ring on his finger pulsed with steady light, a reminder of everything he had achieved. The covenant was his, the ministry was his, and the future was bright. "I did it, Mum," he whispered to the wind. "I did it, Dad. I made you proud." The door opened behind him, and Hermione stepped out. She was older now, her face more mature, but her eyes still held the same fierce intelligence and boundless hope. "Harry," she said, her voice soft. "It's time. They're waiting for you." Harry turned, a smile on his face. "I'm coming. I just needed a moment." Hermione nodded, understanding in her eyes. "I know. It's a lot to take in. But you've earned this, Harry. You've earned everything." Harry crossed the balcony and took her hand. "I couldn't have done it without you. Without all of you. We did this together." Hermione squeezed his hand. "I know. And we'll keep doing it together. For as long as it takes." They walked back into the castle, their footsteps echoing through the ancient halls. The great hall was filled with people, friends, family, allies, supporters. They were all waiting for him, the boy who ruled Britain, the Lord of Wizarding Britain, the heir of Peveril. "I'm ready," Harry said. "I'm ready for whatever comes." He stepped into the hall, and the crowd erupted in cheers. Harry stood in the midst of it, his heart full of hope, his eyes on the future. He had come so far. He had done so much. But the journey was not over. There were always new challenges, new threats, new opportunities to make things better. And Harry Potter, the Lord of Wizarding Britain, was ready to face them all. The end.